My wife, the CEO, organized a company dinner with 30 coworkers, and I was ignored like an outsider. She suddenly stood up, ripped my paycheck apart, and threw them into the trash, shouting, "You leech! You've sucked this company dry!" My wife's sister backed her up, yelling, "Pay back everything we spent training you. What a waste!" My wife's sister sneered, shoved me out the door, while the whole employees hurled insults at me. I said nothing. I just walked away. 1 week later, my wife, 5 a.m., 50 messages. Her sister, 7 a.m., 20 missed calls. HR, 10 a.m. Please, give us one chance. The snowflakes were falling like forgotten promises that evening, settling on the glass walls of the Sterling Towers executive dining room on the 42nd floor. I watched them accumulate in the corners of the windows while 30 voices filled the space around me. Laughter, the clink of wine glasses, the sound of success celebrating itself. I was sitting at the far end of the table, the seat they give to people who don't quite belong but can't quite be excluded. My wife, Victoria, sat at the head of the table. CEO, Queen. The woman I'd married 7 years ago in a small ceremony that her family had called quaint, in that particular tone that means inadequate. She was holding court, end quote. Her platinum wedding ring catching the light as she gestured, telling some story about a merger that had everyone leaning in like disciples at a sermon. I picked at my salmon. It was good salmon, probably $60 a plate, but it tasted like obligation in my mouth. And that's when I told the board, Victoria said, her voice carrying that particular blend of confidence and condescension she'd perfected over the years. Either we pivot now, or we become irrelevant by Q3. Applause. Actual applause. For a business decision. I'd been married to her long enough to know what this dinner was really about. It wasn't a celebration. It was a reminder. A pageant of hierarchy. I was the only person at this table who wasn't on the company payroll in a way that mattered, and everyone knew it. David, the voice came from my left. Jennifer Park, Victoria's VP of Operations, was looking at me with that smile people use when they're about to ask you something they already know will embarrass you. Victoria mentioned you've been helping out in the office. How's that going? Helping out, as if I were a child, doing chores for an allowance. It's going well, I said. My voice was calm. I'd learned to keep it calm, learning a lot about the logistics side. That's wonderful, Jennifer said. And the way she said wonderful made it sound like pathetic. It must be so nice to have a wife who's willing to give you opportunities like that. I felt Victoria's eyes on me. She was waiting to see if I'd react, if I'd defend myself, if I'd do anything that would justify what was coming. Because I could feel it coming. I'd felt it building for weeks, maybe months. The way she'd stopped introducing me at events, the way her sister had started looking at me like I was a stain on expensive upholstery. I'm grateful for it, I said. Because what else do you say when 30 people are waiting to watch you bleed? The dinner continued, course after course. Each one felt longer than the last. I watched Victoria laugh with her senior team, watched her touch the arm of Marcus Chen, her CFO, while making some point about quarterly projections. I watched her sister Catherine whisper something to the HR director that made them both glance at me and smirk. Catherine. God, Catherine. If Victoria was winter, cold, sharp, beautiful in a way that hurts, then Catherine was winter's cruelty personified. She worked as Victoria's chief of staff, which basically meant she was the one who did Victoria's dirty work and enjoyed every minute of it. I should have seen it coming when Catherine stood up first. I'd like to propose a toast, she said, and the room quieted. 30 faces turned toward her. She was wearing red. She always wore red to important events. Said it was her power color. Tonight it looked like war paint. To my sister, Victoria, a woman who built this company from nothing, who turned a small consulting firm into a multi-million-dollar empire. Everyone raised their glasses. I raised mine. What else was I supposed to do? And I think it's important, Catherine continued, her eyes finding me across the table, to acknowledge the people who support that success, the people who benefit from it. There it was, the hook being set. Some people, she said, and now everyone was looking at me, are happy to ride on the coats of successful women, to take and take and take without ever really contributing anything of value. The room had gone quiet. That particular quiet, where everyone knows something terrible is about to happen and they're excited to watch it unfold. Victoria was standing now. She'd stood so smoothly I almost missed it. She picked up an envelope from beside her plate. When had that gotten there? And walked down the length of the table toward me. Her heels made sharp sounds against the hardwood floor. Click, 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 like a countdown. She stopped beside my chair. I could smell her perfume. Chanel No. 5. I'd given her a bottle for our anniversary 3 years ago. She'd thanked me, and then asked if I'd kept the receipt because she preferred the eau de toilette, not the parfum. David, she said. Her voice was pleasant, almost kind, which is how I knew. I didn't move. I'd learned not to move. She opened the envelope and pulled out a piece of paper. My last paycheck. I recognized it immediately, the small amount, the stub showing the deductions for health insurance and the 401k contribution she'd insisted I make. This, she said, holding it up for everyone to see, is what my company pays my husband for consulting work. She put air quotes around the last 2 words. $1,500 a week. For what, exactly? Filing papers? Sitting in on meetings where he contributes nothing? Using our resources to educate himself on our dime? My hands were in my lap. I could feel my wedding ring, the simple gold band I'd bought with money I'd saved from my actual job, before Victoria had convinced me to quit and join the family business. Do you know what I pay my junior analysts? Victoria asked the room. $70,000 a year, entry level, fresh out of college. And they earn it. They work 60-hour weeks. They bring value. They contribute. She tore the check, right down the middle. The sound was surprisingly loud in the quiet room. You, she said, looking down at me, have been a leech, a parasite. You've sucked this company dry for years, and I'm done pretending otherwise. She tore the check again. And again. Pieces of paper falling like the snow outside, settling on the table, on my plate, on my lap. Everything you have, she said, you have because of me. This suit you're wearing, I bought it. The car you drive, company car. The roof over your head, my house, my mortgage, my money. Catherine was on her feet now too, walking around to stand beside her sister. They looked alike in the worst way. The same sharp beauty, the same cold eyes, the same smile that was all teeth and no warmth. We should invoice him, Catherine said, loud enough for everyone to hear, for everything we've wasted training him. Every seminar, every conference, every lunch meeting where he sat there like a useless ornament. Add it all up, make him pay it back. Pay back everything we spent on you, Victoria said. She threw the shredded pieces of my paycheck into the trash can beside the table. The gesture was theatrical, practiced. She'd planned this. What a waste. What an absolute waste of resources. I stood up, slowly, carefully. I could feel every eye in the room on me. 30 people, all waiting to see how I'd react. Would I yell? Would I cry? Would I beg? You're embarrassing yourself, Catherine hissed. Sitting here like you belong, like you're one of us. She put her hand on my shoulder and shoved. Not hard enough to make me fall, but hard enough to make her point. I stumbled back a step. Get out, Victoria said. Her voice was cold now. The pleasant mask dropped entirely. You don't work here. You never really did. and you're not welcome at my table anymore." The room erupted, not all at once, but in waves. Someone laughed. Someone else said something about finally, and should have done this months ago. Jennifer Park was shaking her head like she'd known all along. Marcus Chen looked uncomfortable, but didn't say anything. HR Director Sarah Matthews was watching with professional detachment, already thinking about the paperwork this would create. I walked toward the door. I didn't run. I didn't rush. I walked the way you walk when you're trying to hold on to the last shred of your dignity while 30 people hurl insults at your back. Freeloader. Gold digger. Pathetic. She's better off. Should have left him years ago. The words followed me like birds of prey. I could hear Catherine's voice above them all. "Don't come back. You're done. Finished." I reached the door. My hand was on the handle when Victoria spoke one last time. "I want you out of the house by Monday," she said. "Take your things. Leave your key. And David?" She paused. I didn't turn around. "Don't embarrass yourself by begging. It's over. You're over." I opened the door and walked out. The hallway was quiet after the noise of the dining room. My footsteps echoed on the marble floor. I could see my reflection in the chrome elevator doors as I waited a man in a suit his wife bought him, holding on to nothing. The elevator arrived. I stepped in. The doors closed. I watched the numbers descend. 42, 41, 40, 39. I didn't cry. I'd learned not to cry. Instead, I pulled out my phone. I had 3 missed calls from a number I recognized. I'd been ignoring it all week, waiting for the right moment. I called back. He answered on the first ring. "Mr. Sterling, I was beginning to think you'd changed your mind." "No," I said. My voice was still calm, still steady. "I haven't changed my mind. Monday morning, 9 a.m. Make sure everything is ready." "Everything will be ready, sir." "And sir, if I may, I'm sorry it came to this." "Don't be," I said. The elevator reached the ground floor. The doors opened to the lobby, all glass and steel, and winter light. Some things need to burn before they can be rebuilt. I hung up. I walked out into the snow. It was falling harder now, covering everything in white. Clean, new, like the world was giving me a blank page. Behind me, 42 floors up, 30 people were probably still talking about me, laughing about me. Victoria was probably accepting congratulations for finally cutting the dead weight loose. They had no idea. None of them had any idea. I pulled my coat tighter against the cold and walked toward my car. Not the company car, the one I kept in a private garage across town. The one Victoria didn't know about. The one registered to a name she'd never heard. 7 years. I'd given her 7 years. 7 years of being small, being quiet, being whatever she needed me to be while I built something she couldn't see. Monday morning, everything would change. But tonight, I walked through the snow like a man with nothing left to lose. And I smiled. The car started on the first turn of the key. German engineering. Reliable. Unlike people. I sat in the driver's seat of the Audi A8, not the company BMW that Victoria had assigned me, the one with the tracker she thought I didn't know about, and let the engine warm up. The garage was underground, private, one of those places where wealthy people store the things they don't want others to see. I'd been renting the space for 3 years, cash payments, no paper trail. The attendant, Marcus, not the CFO, gave me a nod as I pulled out. He was used to seeing me come and go at odd hours, never asked questions. That was worth the extra 100 I tipped him every month. The streets were empty for a Friday night. Most people were inside, warm, with people who loved them. I drove through downtown, past the lit windows of restaurants where couples leaned across tables toward each other, past bars where groups of friends celebrated the end of another week. The snow kept falling, turning the city into something from a postcard. Beautiful and cold and completely indifferent to human suffering. I wasn't going to Victoria's house, our house, her house, whatever it was supposed to be called. Instead, I drove north, toward the industrial district, where the buildings got shorter and the streets got wider, toward a part of the city that Victoria Sterling, CEO, would never visit. A part of the city where people actually worked with their hands, where success was measured in hours logged and overtime earned, not in quarterly profits and stock options. The warehouse was exactly where I'd left it. Red brick, 3 stories, windows that had been dark for years before I bought it. I pulled into the loading bay and killed the engine. Silence. Real silence. Not the loaded quiet of 30 people waiting for you to brake. Just peace. I sat there for a moment, letting the events of the evening wash over me. Victoria's face, Catherine's shove, the sound of my paycheck tearing, the insults, the laughter. If you've ever been humiliated in front of people you thought you knew, you understand that particular kind of pain. It's not sharp, it's not immediate. It's slow, like poison, spreading through your chest and making everything feel heavy. But here's the thing about poison. If you know it's coming, you can build up immunity. I got out of the car and unlocked the side door. The warehouse was dark except for the emergency lights I'd installed along the baseboards. They cast everything in a pale green glow as I made my way to the elevator. Yes, elevator. I'd had it installed last year and rode up to the 3rd floor. The lights came on automatically when the doors opened. LED panels, bright and clean, illuminating what I'd spent the last 5 years building. My office took up half the 3rd floor. Glass walls on 3 sides, looking out over the city. The 4th wall was solid, covered in screens and whiteboards and documents. A desk sat in the center, clean and organized. Behind it, floor-to-ceiling windows showed the snow falling over the industrial district, each flake visible in the streetlights below. I'd bought this building 4 years ago. Used money from an account Victoria didn't know existed, funded by investments she'd never asked about. She'd been so certain I was helpless, so convinced I needed her, that she'd never once thought to actually check. People believe what they want to believe. It's one of the first rules of human nature. I poured myself a scotch from the bottle I kept in the desk drawer, Macallan 25. Victoria had given it to me for our 5th anniversary, along with a lecture about how I should appreciate the finer things she exposed me to. I'd never opened it at her house, but here, in this space that was entirely mine, I could drink it without tasting her condescension. The first sip burned. The second one didn't. I sat down at my desk and pulled up my email. 47 new messages since I'd left the dinner. I scrolled through them, categorizing them mentally. Business, personal, urgent, irrelevant. One caught my eye. Subject line: Final confirmation. Monday, 9 a.m. I opened it. Mr. Sterling. As requested, all parties have confirmed for Monday's meeting. The documentation is complete and has been reviewed by our legal team. Everything is in order. The transfer protocols are ready to execute upon your authorization. The board is assembled and waiting for your signal. As we discussed, timing will be critical. Once the sequence begins, there will be no stopping it. I want to ensure you're certain about this course of action. Respectfully, Robert Chen, Chen and Associates. Robert Chen. Not related to Marcus Chen, the CFO, though that coincidence had amused me when I'd first hired him. Robert was a different kind of lawyer, the kind who specialized in corporate restructuring, hostile takeovers, the legal nuclear options that ended careers and destroyed empires. I'd been working with him for 18 months. I typed out a reply. I'm certain. Proceed as planned. Sent. The scotch was half gone. I stood and walked to the windows, looking out over the city. From here, I could see the Sterling Tower in the distance, its upper floors lit up like a beacon. 42nd floor. That's where they still were, probably. Victoria and Catherine and all 30 of her loyal employees, celebrating the execution of Victoria's useless husband, Let me tell you something about marriage. The real story. Not the Instagram version or the anniversary card version. The actual, lived-in truth of it. I met Victoria 7 years ago at a business conference. I was there representing my company, a small tech startup I'd co-founded with 2 friends from college. We'd built proprietary software for supply chain management. Boring, technical, profitable. We were doing well. Not Sterling Tower well, but we were growing, stable, successful in our own right. Victoria was giving a keynote about scaling small businesses. She was magnetic, brilliant. When she spoke, people listened, including me. We talked after her panel. She was interested in our software, she said. Thought there might be opportunities for collaboration. We went to dinner, then another dinner, then coffee, then a weekend trip to the mountains, where she told me she saw potential in me, that I was different from the men in her world, that I was real. I fell for it, all of it, because I wanted to believe that someone like Victoria Sterling could love someone like me. We got married 6 months later. Small ceremony, like I said. Her family came because they had to, not because they wanted to. My parents came and tried to hide their concern. My mother pulled me aside before the ceremony and asked if I was sure, really sure. I told her I was in love. She said, "Love and certainty are different things, David." I should have listened. The first year was good. Victoria was busy building her company, and I was busy with mine. We'd have dinner a few times a week, spend weekends together, talk about our plans. She seemed genuinely interested in what I was doing. She asked questions about the software, about our client base, about our growth projections. I thought she was being supportive. Year 2, she suggested I bring her in as a consultant, just to look over our business model, she said. Give us some advice on scaling. Her expertise could help us break through to the next level. My partners were hesitant, but I insisted. She was my wife. She wanted to help. She identified inefficiencies, suggested restructuring, recommended new hires people from her network, she said, who could help us grow faster. We implemented her suggestions. Within 6 months, we'd tripled our revenue. Within 9 months, my partners wanted out. They came to me separately, each with the same concern. Victoria was taking over. Her people were making decisions without consultation. The company we'd built together was becoming something else. Something we didn't recognize. I didn't believe them. I defended her. I said they were being paranoid, territorial, resistant to necessary change. They sold me their shares at a fair price and walked away. We haven't spoken since. Year 3, Victoria suggested I merge my company with hers. It made sense, she said. We were married. Why maintain separate entities? Think of the tax benefits, the streamlined operations, the synergies. I signed the papers. That's when everything changed. Suddenly, my software wasn't mine anymore. It was Sterling Corporation IP. My employees reported to Victoria's management structure. My office became a cubicle on the 15th floor. My title became consultant instead of co-founder and CTO. And I became less. Year 4. Victoria suggested I quit my role entirely. The company was evolving beyond its original scope, she said. We needed fresh talent, people with different expertise. Besides, didn't I want to spend more time learning about other aspects of the business, expanding my skill set? I could work part-time, she said. Attend meetings, observe, learn. I didn't realize I was being demoted until it was already done. Year 5, her family started making comments. Catherine would ask when I was going to contribute something meaningful. Victoria's mother would inquire about my career plans in that tone that implied I didn't have any. At parties, I became Victoria's husband instead of David Sterling, the person who'd built the software that now powered 30% of Sterling Corporation's revenue. Year 6. Victoria stopped introducing me at events altogether. And year 7. Well, year 7 brought us to tonight. But here's what Victoria didn't know. What none of them knew. I'd been paying attention. Learning. Watching. Taking notes. When you're invisible, people forget you're in the room. They have conversations they shouldn't have. They make decisions assuming you won't understand the implications. They get sloppy. 3 years ago, I started documenting everything. Every email, every meeting, every decision, every instance of corporate malfeasance, ethical violations, regulatory shortcuts, and creative accounting that Victoria's company engaged in while building its empire. Not because I wanted revenge. At first, it was just insurance, a way to protect myself if things went bad. But over time, it became something else, a map, a blueprint, a strategy. 2 years ago, I quietly began approaching Sterling Corporation's competitors. Not to sell secrets that would be illegal, and I'm not that kind of person, but to offer something more valuable: expertise, consultation, strategic insights based on my years of building the very software that made Sterling Corporation successful. They paid well, very well. The money went into accounts Victoria didn't know about, investments she never saw, properties she never heard of, like this warehouse. 18 months ago, I started buying stock. Not Sterling Corporation stock that would have triggered alerts, but stock in the holding companies that owned shares in Sterling Corporation. Small purchases, distributed across multiple entities. Nothing that would raise flags. And 12 months ago, I discovered something interesting. Something Victoria had been very, very careful to hide. Sterling Corporation was leveraged heavily. The explosive growth, the expansion, the acquisitions, all of it was built on debt. Strategic debt, yes, but debt nonetheless. And the terms of that debt included some very specific clauses about ownership transfer and control provisions. If the right shares changed hands at the right time, in the right way, control of Sterling Corporation could shift in a matter of hours. I'd spent the last year making sure I'd be holding those shares. My phone buzzed. A text message from a number I didn't recognize. It's done. The transfer's cleared. You now control 34% through the various entities. Combined with the Chen family holdings and the institutional investors we've secured, that gives you effective control of 51.7% of Sterling Corporation. Congratulations, Mr. Sterling. Come Monday morning, you'll be the majority shareholder. I read it twice. Then I deleted it. 34%, plus the 17.7 from allies I'd cultivated over the past year. People who were tired of Victoria's management style. Board members who'd been pushed aside. Investors who'd been marginalized. All of them ready to vote with me when the time came. 51.7%. Majority control. I finished the scotch and poured another. Outside, the snow had stopped falling. The city looked clean. New. Like someone had erased all the mistakes and given everyone a chance to start over. Monday morning at 9 a.m., I would walk into the Sterling Corporation board meeting that Victoria didn't know had been called. I would present the documentation of share transfers. I would assume control of the company. And then I would start asking questions, lots of questions, about financial irregularities, about the treatment of employees, about hostile work environment complaints that had been buried, about the creative accounting that had inflated quarterly reports, about the illegal acquisition of my company 4 years ago, when Victoria had used insider information provided by the consultants she'd planted to manipulate me into a merger that, legally speaking, should never have happened. I had evidence, documentation, witnesses, a paper trail that would take years to untangle. Victoria had been so certain of her power that she'd never considered she might be vulnerable. It's funny. She'd spent years making me feel small, useless, dependent. She'd torn up my paycheck tonight like it meant nothing. She had no idea that paycheck actually meant nothing, that I'd been taking it just to maintain appearances, that my real income, the money from consulting, from investments, from the slow, patient accumulation of power was more than she paid her CFO. The irony was almost painful. I looked at the time, 11:47 p.m. In roughly 84 hours, everything would change. But tonight, I had one more thing to do. I pulled up my contacts and scrolled to a name I hadn't called in 3 years. My old business partner, Michael. The phone rang 4 times before he answered. "David?" His voice was cautious, surprised. "Is everything okay?" "Michael," I said, "I need to apologize for not listening, for choosing her over our partnership, for everything." Silence. Then, "It's been 3 years, man." "I know, and I can't undo that, but I can ask. When this is over, when everything settles, maybe we could talk about building something new, something that's actually ours." More silence. Then a laugh, soft but genuine. "You finally figured it out, didn't you? What she was doing." "Took me long enough." "Better late than never," he said. "Yeah, when it's over, we'll talk." We hung up. I turned off the office lights and rode the elevator back down to the loading bay. The Audi started smooth and quiet. I pulled out into the empty streets and pointed the car toward a hotel downtown. Not the one Victoria knew about. A different one, where I'd already checked in under a different name. Because I wasn't going back to her house. Not tonight. Not ever. Let her wonder where I was. Let her think I was broken, defeated, crawling off to lick my wounds somewhere. She had no idea I was sharpening my knives. The city passed by outside my windows. I drove through the financial district, past Sterling Tower one more time. The lights were off now, on the 42nd floor. They were probably all gone home, back to their lives, their small victories, their petty cruelties. Monday morning would be interesting. I smiled in the darkness of the car, and for the first time in 7 years, it felt real. Saturday morning arrived with pale winter light filtering through hotel curtains I didn't remember closing. For a moment, just one brief, disoriented moment, I forgot where I was. Then I remembered. The dinner. The torn paycheck. The snow. The drive. The plan. I checked my phone. 7 missed calls from Victoria. 12 text messages. I didn't read them. Not yet. There was a particular pleasure in making her wait, in letting her wonder where I was, in allowing her to feel even a fraction of the uncertainty she'd made me live with for years. Instead, I ordered room service, eggs, Benedict, coffee, fresh orange juice, and opened my laptop. The Wall Street Journal had already picked up the story, buried in the business section. Sterling Corporation reports record Q4 earnings. Victoria's face smiled from the thumbnail photo, professional and polished. The article praised her leadership, her vision, her ability to scale a company through aggressive expansion and strategic acquisitions. It mentioned nothing about the debt, nothing about the leveraged positions, nothing about the house of cards she'd built and called an empire. That would change soon enough. I pulled up the secure server where I'd been storing documents for the past 3 years. Folders within folders, categories within categories. A digital archive of everything Victoria had done to build Sterling Corporation into what it was today. Folder, employment practices. Wage theft complaints. Buried. Overtime violations settled quietly. Hostile work environment cases. NDAs signed. Wrongful termination suits paid off. Folder, financial irregularities. Revenue recognition games. Expense manipulations. Related party transactions. Off-balance sheet arrangements. Folder, acquisition of Sterling Tech Solutions, my company. Email chains showing planted consultants. Documents proving insider information. Evidence of market manipulation. Proof of fraudulent inducement. Each folder was meticulously organized. Each document was verified, cross-referenced, backed up in 3 separate locations. Because that's what you do when you're building a case that needs to be absolutely bulletproof. People think revenge is hot, impulsive, emotional. Real revenge is cold, patient, methodical. Real revenge is served on a spreadsheet with supporting documentation and legal precedent. My phone rang. Victoria. I watched it buzz on the nightstand, her name flashing on the screen. The photo that came up was from our wedding day, her in white, me in my rental tux, both of us smiling like we believed in forever. I let it go to voicemail. She called again immediately. Then again. Then Catherine called. Then the house phone number, as if I'd somehow gone back there to answer it. I turned the phone face down and went back to my laptop. There's something you need to understand about the kind of humiliation I experienced on Friday night. It wasn't just about the moment. It was about the accumulation. 7 years of small cuts, each one barely noticeable on its own. But together, they'd bled me nearly dry. Year 1. David, maybe don't share that story at dinner. It's a bit pedestrian for this crowd. Year 2. I had to apologize for you today. You really embarrassed me in front of the investors. Year 3. Why can't you be more like Marcus? He gets it. He understands how to operate at this level. Year 4. I'm starting to wonder if this was a mistake. You're not adapting the way I'd hoped. Year 5. My mother asked when you're going to do something with your life. I didn't know how to answer her. Year 6. Don't come to the gala. I need to focus on business relationships, and honestly, you're a distraction. Year 7. Torn paycheck, public humiliation, 30 witnesses, no pretense left. If you've ever been with someone who makes you smaller every day, who chips away at who you are until you barely recognize yourself in the mirror, you know that particular kind of exhausted. It's not like being tired from work. It's tired from existing. From constantly defending your right to take up space. But here's what Victoria never understood. Being underestimated is a weapon if you know how to use it. Every time she dismissed me, I learned something. Every meeting she let me sit in on because she thought I was too stupid to understand what was being discussed, I took notes. Every financial document she left on her home office desk because she assumed I couldn't read a balance sheet, I photographed. She made me invisible. And invisible people see everything. My phone buzzed with a text. Not Victoria this time. Robert Chen. Everything is proceeding smoothly. Board members confirmed for Monday, 9 a.m. Documentation has been distributed under seal. They're surprised. Several have already called asking if this is real. I typed back, "It's real." How are they reacting? Mixed. Some are pleased. Others are concerned about the implications. Harrison wants to know if you plan to replace current management immediately. Harrison, board member for 6 years, former CEO of a competitor that Victoria had crushed through aggressive price, undercutting and poaching key employees. He'd never forgiven her for it, but he'd been stuck on her board because he owned too many shares to walk away. He'd be an ally. Tell Harrison we'll discuss management changes after the transition is complete. First priority is a comprehensive audit. Understood. I set the phone down and walked to the window. The hotel overlooked the river, frozen solid this time of year. People were ice skating on it, bundled in winter coats, laughing and falling and helping each other up. Normal people, living normal lives, not calculating hostile takeovers or documenting corporate fraud. Part of me envied them, but only part. The room service arrived. I ate slowly, methodically, tasting everything. The eggs were perfect hollandaise, rich and lemony. English muffin toasted just right. Canadian bacon crispy at the edges. The coffee was dark and strong. The orange juice was fresh squeezed, tart and sweet at the same time. When was the last time I'd actually tasted my food? Really tasted it, instead of eating out of obligation or rushing through meals while Victoria talked about quarterly reports. I couldn't remember. After breakfast, I went to the gym. The hotel had a small one on the third floor. Treadmills, weights, a few ellipticals. I ran for an hour, pushing myself harder than I had in years. Sweat and exertion and the simple physical pleasure of movement. Victoria used to comment on my workouts. "You're not getting any younger, David. Maybe try yoga instead? Less strain on the joints." As if my 34-year-old body was already breaking down. As if I was already obsolete. I ran faster. By noon, I'd showered, changed, and was back at my laptop. More emails, more confirmations, more pieces falling into place. The thing about corporate takeovers is they're like chess games. You have to think 15 moves ahead, anticipate counter moves, set up multiple strategies in case your primary one fails. I'd been playing this game for 18 months. Victoria didn't even know she was on the board. My phone rang again. This time, it was a number I didn't recognize. I answered. "David Sterling?" The voice was female, professional, unfamiliar. End quote. Drief fail. Speaking. "This is Jennifer Park, from Sterling Corporation. We met last night at the dinner." Ah, the VP of Operations, the one who'd asked about my helping out with that particular condescending smile. "I remember," I said. My voice was neutral, pleasant, giving nothing away. "I'm calling because, well, Victoria asked me to reach out. She's concerned that you haven't been answering your phone. She wants to make sure you're all right." "I'm fine," I said. "Thank you for checking." Silence. She'd expected more. Probably expected me to ask about Victoria, to explain where I was, to apologize for leaving. "Do you have a message you'd like me to pass along to her?" Jennifer asked. "No," I said. "No message." "David, I realize last night was difficult, but Victoria is willing to discuss things, maybe work out some kind of arrangement. She asked me to tell you that she might have been hasty, that there's still a place for you at the company if you're willing to be reasonable about compensation and role." I laughed. I couldn't help it. The sound came out genuine and surprised even me. "Did she actually say that?" I asked. "That she was hasty? Those exact words?" "Well, not exactly those words. But she implied." "Tell Victoria that I appreciate her concern," I said, "and that I'll see her Monday morning." "Monday morning?" "David, you don't work Mondays. Your schedule is Tuesday through Thursday, and even that's flexible now that—" "Just tell her," I said. "Monday morning, 9 a.m. She should make sure she's in the office." I hung up. The satisfaction was immediate and warming, like good scotch. Victoria had sent Jennifer to do damage control, which meant Victoria was starting to worry, starting to wonder if maybe she'd pushed too far this time. Good. Let her worry. I spent the rest of Saturday reviewing documents with Robert Chen over video call. He walked me through the timeline for Monday's board meeting, the order of presentations, the likely questions and objections. "Victoria will fight this," he said. His face on the screen was serious. "Professional," he said. .com, why 1%, by 1%, end quote, end quote. Never41.com, .omer, 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 .omer. He was in his 60s, gray-haired and sharp-eyed. A lawyer who'd built his career on battles like this one. Once she understands what's happening, she'll come out swinging. "I know," I said. "She'll claim the share transfers were fraudulent, that you manipulated board members, that you used insider information from your marriage. She can claim whatever she wants. We have documentation for every transaction. Every share purchase was legitimate. Every conversation with board members was above board. I haven't used any information from our marriage that wasn't already public knowledge." or discoverable through normal due diligence. She'll make it personal, Robert warned. She'll attack your character, your competence, your motives. She's been doing that for 7 years, I said. I think I can handle one more day. Robert smiled slightly. You're calmer than most people would be in your position. Panic is what she'd expect, I said. Panic is what she's counting on. She spent years convincing me I was helpless without her, that I needed her, that I was nothing on my own. And now she's going to learn that she was wrong. We finished the call around 6 p.m. I ordered dinner from a steakhouse down the street, ribeye, medium rare, with truffle fries and a Caesar salad. Another meal I actually tasted. Another moment of simple pleasure. Sunday arrived the same way Saturday had pale light hotel room, the strange comfort of anonymity. I checked my phone. 23 missed calls now, 37 text messages, 3 voicemails. I listened to the voicemails on speaker while I made coffee with the in-room machine. Voicemail 1, Victoria, Friday night at 11:47 p.m. David, where the hell are you? You need to come home. We need to talk about this like adults. Call me back. Her voice was irritated but controlled, still thinking this was something she could manage. Voicemail 2, Victoria, Saturday morning at 8:23 a.m. David, this is getting ridiculous. I understand you're upset, but running away isn't going to solve anything. Come home. Let's discuss this rationally. I'm willing to work something out. Now there was a hint of concern. The first crack in the facade. Voicemail 3, Catherine, Saturday night at 9:15 p.m. David, it's Catherine. Look, Victoria's worried. We're all worried. Nobody's seen or heard from you since Friday. Just call someone, okay? Let us know you're alive. Whatever happened at the dinner, we can move past it. Just come back and we'll figure this out. Interesting. Catherine sounded almost human, almost concerned. The sister who'd shoved me and called me a waste was now playing the role of caring family member. Too little, too late. I deleted all 3 voicemails without responding. Sunday was for final preparations. I met with Robert Chen in person at his office, a sleek space downtown, all glass and leather and expensive art. We went through everything one more time. Every document, every precedent, every possible angle Victoria might use to fight back. You're sure about this? Robert asked at one point. Once we start tomorrow, there's no going back. This will destroy your marriage. It will destroy her company as she knows it. It will destroy a lot of relationships. My marriage has been over for years, I said. I was just too busy being the person she wanted me to be to notice. And her company? It's built on my software, my ideas, and my work. I'm not destroying anything. I'm taking back what was mine. And the relationships? I thought about Friday night. About 30 people watching me get humiliated. About the laughter, the insults, the way they'd all turned on me the second Victoria gave them permission. What relationships? I said. Robert nodded slowly. All right then. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. sharp. I'll have everything ready. Thank you, Robert. Thank me when it's over, he said. This is going to be ugly, David. Beautiful in its own way, legally speaking, but ugly. I know. I drove back to the hotel as the sun was setting. The city looked peaceful in the dying light, all the harsh edges softened by the winter dusk. Somewhere out there, Victoria was in our house. Her house probably pacing, probably calling people, probably trying to figure out where I'd gone and what I was planning. She'd always been good at strategy, at seeing 3 moves ahead, at anticipating what her competitors would do. But she'd made one critical error. She'd never considered me a competitor. To her, I was a pawn, a piece she could move around the board as she pleased, something to be used and discarded when it was no longer useful. She'd forgotten that pawns, if they survive long enough, can become queens. I spent Sunday evening in my hotel room, reviewing everything one last time. Not because I needed to. I'd memorized every detail weeks ago, but because the ritual of it was soothing. This was happening. Tomorrow, everything would change. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with one more text. Victoria, David, please, whatever I did, whatever you think I did, we can fix this. Just come home, please. I stared at the message for a long time. 7 years. 7 years of being made to feel small, of being dismissed, of being treated like an accessory to her success rather than a partner in a marriage. And now, 12 hours before everything came crashing down around her, she was saying, please. I typed out a response. I'll see you tomorrow, Victoria. 9 a.m. Sterling Corporation. Boardroom. Don't be late. Sent. 3 dots appeared immediately. She was typing. Then they disappeared. Then appeared again. Then disappeared. No response came. I turned off my phone, set it on the nightstand, and lay back on the hotel bed. Tomorrow was Monday. Tomorrow was 9 a.m. Tomorrow was the moment 7 years of careful planning would finally pay off. Tomorrow, Victoria Sterling would learn that the man she'd torn a paycheck in front of, the man she'd humiliated and dismissed and thrown away, was about to become her boss. The irony was almost poetic. I closed my eyes and, for the first time in years, slept without anxiety, without stress, without the constant weight of trying to be someone I wasn't. I slept like a man who knew exactly who he was and exactly what he was about to do. Monday morning was coming, and I was ready. Monday morning arrived sharp and clear. No snow, no clouds, just winter sunlight cutting through the city like a blade, bright and merciless and absolutely unforgiving. I dressed carefully. The suit I chose wasn't one Victoria had bought me. It was custom Savile Row, tailored in London 8 months ago during a business trip she didn't know I'd taken. Charcoal gray, subtle pinstripe, cut to make me look exactly what I was about to become, a man in control. The shirt was white, Egyptian cotton. The tie was navy blue silk with a pattern so subtle you had to look twice to see it. The shoes were Italian leather, polished to a mirror shine. I looked at myself in the hotel bathroom mirror and barely recognized the man looking back. For 7 years, I dressed the way Victoria wanted me to dress, styled my hair the way she preferred, presented myself as an accessory to her success. This man in the mirror was different. This man looked like he owned things, commanded things, decided things. This man looked dangerous. Good. I arrived at Sterling Tower at 8:42 a.m., 18 minutes early. The lobby was already busy with Monday morning traffic, employees rushing to their desks, coffee in hand, ready to start another week of building Victoria's empire. None of them recognized me. Why would they? I was just another man in a suit, just another body in the elevator, riding up to floors where decisions got made and futures got decided. I got off on the executive level, 42nd floor, the same floor where, 72 hours ago, I'd been humiliated in front of 30 people. The boardroom was at the end of the hall. Glass walls, long table, leather chairs. Through the windows, you could see the entire city spread out below like a map of possibilities. Robert Chen was already there, setting up documents at the head of the table. He looked up when I entered and gave me a small nod. "They're starting to arrive," he said quietly. "Harrison's here. Matthews. Chen. Marcus Chen, the CFO, no relation to me, just walked in looking confused. Victoria isn't here yet. She will be," I said. "She's never late." I took my seat at the head of the table. Robert's seat. The power position. The chair Victoria usually occupied when she ran board meetings. The board members filed in over the next 10 minutes, 9 of them total. I knew all their faces from the research I'd done. Some of them knew me or thought they did. Most looked confused about why I was there. Harrison sat down on my right. He was in his 60s, silver-haired, with the kind of face that had seen too many boardroom battles and wasn't impressed by much anymore. "Mr. Sterling," he said, and there was something almost amused in his tone. "This should be interesting. That's one word for it," I replied. Marcus Chen, the CFO, Victoria's Marcus, sat across from me. He was frowning, looking at the sealed envelopes Robert had placed at each seat. "What's this about?" he asked. "I don't have this meeting on my calendar. Victoria didn't mention." "All will be explained shortly," Robert said smoothly. "We're just waiting for—" The door opened. Victoria walked in. She was wearing Power Red, her signature color, a dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, perfectly tailored, perfectly pressed. Her hair was pulled back in a severe bun. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like exactly what she was, a woman who owned the room she walked into, until she saw me sitting at the head of the table. She stopped, actually stopped mid-stride. Her face went through a series of expressions in rapid succession: confusion, recognition, anger, and then something else. Something that might have been the first stirring of real concern. "David?" She looked at Robert Chen. "What is this? What's he doing here?" "Miss Sterling," Robert said, "please take a seat. We're about to begin." "Begin what?" Victoria's voice had edges now. Sharp ones. "I didn't call this meeting. I don't even know why I'm here. My assistant said it was urgent board business." "But—" "It is urgent board business," Robert said. "Please, sit." Victoria looked around the table, at the board members who wouldn't meet her eyes, at the sealed envelopes, at me, sitting in her chair, wearing a suit she'd never seen, looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. She sat down, slowly, carefully, like she was afraid the chair might collapse under her. "Good morning, everyone," Robert said. "Thank you for coming on such short notice. I know this is unusual, but the matter we're addressing today requires immediate attention. If you'll open the envelopes in front of you, you'll find documentation that explains why we're here." The sound of 9 envelopes being opened filled the boardroom, papers rustling. Silence as people began to read. I watched Victoria's face as she scanned the first page, watched the color drain from her cheeks, watched her eyes go wide, then narrow, then wide again. "This is—" she started, then stopped. She flipped to the second page, then the third. Her hands were shaking slightly. Just slightly, but I could see it. "This can't be legal. This is fraud. This is—" "I can assure you, Miss Sterling, every transaction documented in those pages is completely legal," Robert said. "All share purchases were conducted through proper channels. All documentation has been filed with the appropriate regulatory bodies. Everything is above board." "David doesn't own shares in this company," Victoria said. Her voice was rising. "He can't. He doesn't have the money. He doesn't have the knowledge. He doesn't." "Apparently he does," Harrison said. He was smiling. Actually smiling. "According to this, David Sterling controls 34% of Sterling Corporation through a series of shell companies and investment vehicles. Combined with the shares held by myself and several other board members who have agreed to vote as a block, that gives him majority control." The room went very quiet. Victoria was staring at me now. Really staring. Like she was seeing me for the first time in 7 years. "How?" she whispered. "How did you—" "Your first mistake," I said, and my voice was calm, steady, nothing like the way I used to sound when I talked to her, "was assuming I was helpless. Your second mistake was assuming I was stupid. And your third mistake, the fatal one, was assuming I would stay broken." I stood up, slowly, deliberately. Every eye in the room followed me. "Let me tell you a story," I said, "about a man who built a company from nothing. A tech startup. Small but profitable. Growing. Successful. And then he met a woman who said she could help him scale it. Make it bigger. Better. More successful than he ever dreamed. Victoria's face had gone from pale to ashen. So he trusted her, I continued. He brought her in as a consultant. He listened to her advice. He implemented her suggestions. And when she suggested merging his company with hers, he signed the papers because he loved her, because he believed she loved him back. I walked around the table slowly. No one moved. But it wasn't love. It was acquisition. She didn't want a partner. She wanted intellectual property. She wanted software that would make her company competitive. And once she had it, once the merger was complete, she started making the man smaller, quieter, less relevant, until he became nothing more than a tax write-off. Marcus Chen was reading through the documents now, his face growing more and more troubled. But here's the thing about making someone invisible, I said. Invisible people see everything. And this particular invisible man? He spent the last 3 years documenting everything he saw. I nodded to Robert. He pulled out a tablet and connected it to the boardroom's display screen. A spreadsheet appeared, row after row of data. Financial irregularities, I said. Revenue recognition games that push the boundaries of GAAP. Related party transactions that should have been disclosed but weren't. Off-balance sheet arrangements that hide the true extent of the company's leverage. Victoria stood up. You have no right. I have every right, I said, and there was steel in my voice now. I'm about to become the majority shareholder, which means I have a fiduciary duty to investigate any potential malfeasance. Robert clicked to the next screen. Employment records. Hostile work environment complaints. 17 in the last 3 years, all settled with NDAs and payoffs. Wage theft allegations. Overtime violations. A culture of fear and intimidation that starts at the top and filters down through every level of this organization. Those are lies, Victoria said, but her voice wasn't strong anymore. Disgruntled employees, people who couldn't cut it. And then there's the matter of Sterling Tech Solutions, I said. The room got even quieter. My company, the one I built, the one that was fraudulently acquired through the use of insider information provided by consultants, you planted specifically to manipulate me into a disadvantageous merger. I pulled out a folder from my briefcase and placed it on the table. I have emails, recorded conversations, documentation proving that you orchestrated the entire thing, that you never intended to be a partner, that from day one your plan was to absorb my company, strip it for parts, and discard me when I was no longer useful. Victoria was gripping the table. You can't prove. I can prove all of it, I said quietly. I've been proving it for 18 months, to lawyers, to regulatory agencies, to the board members sitting at this table who were willing to listen. I looked around the room. Miss Sterling has built an empire. There's no denying that. But she built it on leverage, on creative accounting, on exploitation of employees, and on at least one instance of corporate fraud that I can prove in court. Marcus Chen cleared his throat. David, I didn't know about any of this. The acquisition of your company, I was told it was a standard merger, and you were told what she wanted you to believe, I said, just like everyone else. Harrison was leaning back in his chair, arms crossed, looking almost pleased. So what's your play here, David? You've got majority control. You've got evidence of wrongdoing. What happens now? I looked at Victoria. She was still standing, still gripping the table, and for the first time since I'd known her, she looked completely lost. Now, I said, we vote. Robert distributed ballots. Simple, clean. Do you support the transition of controlling interest to David Sterling, with immediate effect? The board members voted. One by one, they checked boxes and handed their ballots back to Robert. Robert counted them. 9 votes cast. 7 in favor. 2 opposed. The motion passes. Victoria sank back into her chair. You can't. Miss Sterling, Robert said gently. As of this moment, David Sterling controls Sterling Corporation. He has the authority to make executive decisions, including decisions about current management. Everyone was looking at me now, waiting. This was the moment. The moment I could destroy her the way she destroyed me. The moment I could take everything she'd built and tear it apart. Fire her. Humiliate her in front of her board the way she'd humiliated me in front of her employees. It would be fair. It would be just. It would be exactly what she deserved. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw something I hadn't expected to see. Fear. Real fear. Not of losing her company, though, that was there too, but of being exposed, of everyone seeing her the way I'd learned to see her, of the mask slipping and revealing what was underneath. I'm not firing you, I said. Victoria's head snapped up. What? I'm not firing you, I repeated. You're good at what you do, Victoria. You built this company. You know how to run it. Firing you would be cutting off my nose to spite my face. She stared at me like I'd started speaking a foreign language. But there will be changes, I said, effective immediately. First, a complete financial audit, independent auditors, full transparency, everything above board. Second, a review of all employment practices. The hostile work environment complaints get investigated properly. The wage theft allegations get addressed. We become the kind of company that treats people like humans, not resources to be exploited. I walked back to the head of the table. Third, Marcus, you're fired. Marcus Chen went pale. What? I didn't. You signed off on every financial irregularity in this company for the last 4 years, I said. Either you knew what was happening and you're complicit, or you didn't know and you're incompetent. Either way, you're done. You have until end of business today to clean out your desk. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Victoria. She wasn't looking back. Fourth, I said, Catherine Sterling is terminated. Effective immediately. Chief of Staff is a position we no longer need. She's enabled and encouraged every toxic behavior in this organization, and she participated directly in employee harassment and intimidation. You can't fire my sister, Victoria said, but there was no force behind it. I can, I said. I just did. Fifth, we're establishing an ethics committee. Board oversight. Real accountability. This company is going to operate with integrity, or it's not going to operate at all. I sat down in the chair at the head of the table, my chair now. You'll stay on as CEO, I said to Victoria. For now, contingent on your cooperation with the audit and your willingness to implement these changes. You'll report to me. Every major decision gets my approval. Every financial move gets reviewed. You built this company, Victoria, but you built it wrong. We're going to fix it. The boardroom was absolutely silent. Do you understand? I asked. Victoria nodded slowly. She looked like she'd been hit by a truck, like her entire world had just inverted and she couldn't figure out which way was up anymore. Good, I said. Robert, draft the necessary paperwork. Harrison, I'd like you to chair the ethics committee. Everyone else, you'll receive detailed briefings on the changes by end of week. I stood up. This meeting is adjourned. People started gathering their things, papers shuffling, chairs scraping, the normal sounds of a meeting ending. But Victoria didn't move. She just sat there, staring at nothing. I walked over to her chair, leaned down slightly, spoke quietly enough that only she could hear. Friday night, I said. You tore up my paycheck. You threw me away like garbage. You humiliated me in front of 30 people because you thought I was nothing without you." She looked up at me. There were tears in her eyes. Actual tears. "I didn't fire you today," I said, "because I'm not you. I don't destroy people for sport. I don't humiliate people to feel powerful. But make no mistake, Victoria, you work for me now. This company, it's mine. And if you ever, ever treat another human being the way you treated me, I won't hesitate to remove you." I straightened up. "HR will contact you about your new reporting structure. I suggest you clear your calendar for the next few weeks. We have a lot of work to do. HR will contact you. I walked out of the boardroom without looking back. The elevator ride down felt like floating. Like gravity had temporarily stopped working, and I was suspended between who I'd been and who I was becoming. 42 floors. All the way down. All the way out. 42 floors. 42 floors. When I stepped into the lobby, my phone was already buzzing. Text messages, voicemails, emails, flooding in. I ignored all of it. Instead, I walked out into the winter morning. The sun was bright, the air was cold and clean, and for the first time in 7 years, I felt like I could breathe. Somewhere 42 floors above me, Victoria Sterling was sitting in a boardroom, her world in pieces, trying to figure out what the hell had just happened. And I was walking away. Not running. Not hiding. Not broken. Walking. With my head up and my shoulders back, and the knowledge that sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's surviving. It's thriving. It's becoming so undeniably powerful that the people who tried to destroy you have no choice but to acknowledge what you've become. I pulled out my phone and called Michael. "It's done," I said when he answered. "How do you feel?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. "Free," I said. And I meant it. I spent Monday afternoon in my warehouse office, watching the city below while my phone vibrated itself nearly off the desk. 47 calls in 3 hours. Texts coming in faster than I could read them. Emails piling up with subject lines that ranged from urgent to "we need to talk" to "what the hell did you do?" I let them accumulate. There's power in silence. Victoria had taught me that, though she'd never meant to. All those times, she'd ignored my calls, made me wait for responses, kept me uncertain about where I stood. She'd been demonstrating a fundamental truth about power dynamics. The person who cares less has more control. And right now, I didn't need to care at all. Robert Chen called at 2:17 p.m. Him, I answered. "It's chaos over here," he said, and I could hear something like satisfaction in his voice. Victoria locked herself in her office. Catherine showed up screaming about wrongful termination. Marcus is threatening to sue. The whole executive floor is in meltdown. Catherine was there? I thought security would have escorted her out. One. They tried. She made a scene in the lobby. Took 3 guards to remove her. She was yelling something about you being a con artist and how she'd see you destroyed. He paused. It was quite theatrical. That sounds like Catherine. HR wants to know how to handle the transition. Who reports to whom? What the new hierarchy looks like. They're panicking because half the executive team is calling emergency meetings and the other half is updating their LinkedIn profiles. I leaned back in my chair, watching the winter sun slide across the warehouse windows. Tell HR to maintain current reporting structures for now, with one exception. Victoria reports directly to me for all major decisions. Schedule a company-wide meeting for Friday. I'll address everyone then. What about Marcus? He's demanding severance, threatening legal action. Give him standard severance package for his position. No more, no less. If he wants to sue, let him. We have documentation of every financial irregularity he signed off on. His lawyers will advise him to take the severance and walk away quietly. And Catherine? Catherine gets nothing beyond what's legally required. She wasn't an employee in the traditional sense. Chief of Staff is a contracted position. Check the contract terms. I'm betting Victoria was loose with the language. Terminate according to whatever clause covers performance or company restructuring. Robert was quiet for a moment. You've thought this through. I've had 3 years to think it through. There's something else, he said. The media is starting to pick up on this. Business Insider has questions. So does the Wall Street Journal. They're asking about the sudden change in ownership, whether there's a hostile takeover, what it means for the company's direction. No comment for now, I said. We'll prepare a statement for release on Wednesday. Something brief. Sterling Corporation undergoes planned leadership transition. Remains committed to growth and innovation. Keep it boring. Keep it corporate. Give them nothing to sensationalize. Understood. And David? Victoria hasn't left her office. Her assistant says she's been sitting in there for 5 hours, just sitting, not making calls, not working, just staring out the window. Something twisted in my chest. Not quite guilt, not quite sympathy, something more complicated that I didn't have a name for. That's not my problem to solve, I said. No, Robert agreed. I suppose it isn't. We hung up. I stood and walked to the windows. From here, I could see Sterling Tower in the distance. 42 floors of glass and steel and shattered illusions. Somewhere up there, Victoria was sitting in her office, my office now, really, though she didn't know it yet, trying to process how her entire world had inverted in the span of 90 minutes. If you've ever watched someone powerful lose their power, you know it's not a clean thing. It's not satisfying the way revenge fantasies suggest it should be. It's complicated. It's messy. It leaves you feeling strange, like you've won something but you're not entirely sure what the prize is worth. I called Michael. Hey, he said. Survivor. How's it feel to own a multi-million-dollar company? Surreal, I said. Also exhausting. Also vindicating. Also strange. That's a lot of feelings for one afternoon. It's been that kind of day. I paused. You said we could talk. About building something new. Were you serious? Dead serious. What are you thinking? I'm thinking Sterling Corporation has good bones, but bad culture. I'm thinking we could fix the culture, rebuild the company into something ethical and sustainable. But I'm also thinking. I trailed off, watching a plane cross the sky outside my window. I'm also thinking I spent 7 years watching someone else build an empire. Maybe it's time I built my own. Sells Sterling Corp? Michael sounded surprised. Eventually. Not right away. First, I fix it. Clean up the financial mess. Establish proper oversight. Make it the kind of company that operates with integrity. Then, once it's stable and valuable and clean, I sell it for what it's actually worth. And then we start fresh. You, me, whoever else from the old team wants in. We build something that's ours from the ground up. No baggage, no toxic history. Just good work and good people and a company we can be proud of. Michael was quiet for a long moment. You've really thought this through? 3 years, I said. I've had 3 years of sitting in meetings, watching bad decisions get made, seeing good people get chewed up by a machine that only cares about growth at any cost. I know exactly what I don't want to build. When do we start? Give me 6 months, I said. 6 months to stabilize Sterling Corp, get it audit ready, position it for sale. Then we start planning the next thing. I'm in, Michael said. And David, I'm proud of you, man. I know today was hard. Whatever else happens, you did something most people don't have the courage to do. You took your life back. We hung up. My phone buzzed immediately. A text from a number I didn't recognize. This is Sarah Matthews, HR Director at Sterling Corp. We need to discuss transition procedures. Also, Miss Sterling has requested a meeting with you. She says it's urgent. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I typed back, transition procedures. Schedule a meeting with my assistant for later this week. Miss Sterling's request. Tell her I'll be available Thursday afternoon, 2 p.m., my office. Not her office. Mine. The one at the warehouse she didn't know existed. Let her come to my space for once. Let her see that I had a whole life, a whole infrastructure that existed completely outside her awareness. Understood. I'll relay the message. Another text came in, this one from Victoria's personal phone. David, please, we need to talk. I don't understand what's happening. How did you do this? Where did you get the money? Why didn't you tell me? I read it 3 times. Each time, I felt less sympathy and more anger. She wanted to know why I didn't tell her? After 7 years of making me feel like I couldn't tell her anything? After building a relationship where every conversation was an interrogation and every explanation was an excuse to find fault? I didn't respond. Tuesday morning arrived with a new wave of chaos. My phone started buzzing at 4:47 a.m. I ignored it, went for a run, made breakfast, showered, and dressed before checking the messages. 53 missed calls, 89 text messages, 27 voicemails. I scrolled through the cinders. Victoria, Catherine, Marcus, Jennifer Park, various board members, employees I'd never met, reporters, lawyers, and 3 messages from my mother asking if everything was okay because she'd seen something on the news about Sterling Corporation. I called my mother back first. David, honey, are you all right? The news said something about a corporate shakeup at Victoria's company. They're saying you're involved somehow. I'm fine, Mom. Better than fine, actually. But the news said, the news is right. I've taken control of Sterling Corporation. It's complicated, but it's good. It's what needed to happen. Silence. Then, does this mean you're leaving her? That's complicated too. David. Her voice was gentle but firm. The voice she'd used when I was younger and she needed me to hear something important. I've watched you shrink for 7 years. Every time we saw you, you were smaller, quieter, less yourself. If taking control of her company is what it took for you to remember who you are, then I'm glad it happened. My throat tightened. You never said anything. You wouldn't have listened. You had to figure it out yourself. She paused. I'm proud of you, honey. Whatever happens next, I'm proud of you. We talked for another 20 minutes. She asked practical questions. Where was I living? Was I safe? Did I need anything? I assured her I was fine, that I had a plan, that she didn't need to worry. When we hung up, I felt steadier, grounded, ready to face whatever Tuesday would bring. What Tuesday brought was Catherine. She showed up at the warehouse at 9:23 a.m. I have no idea how she found the address. Probably hired a private investigator. That would be her style. But suddenly my assistant, yes, I had an assistant. Her name was Miranda, and she was excellent. Was calling up from the ground floor saying there was a very angry woman demanding to see me. Send her up, I said. Miranda's voice was uncertain. Are you sure? She's quite agitated. I'm sure. Catherine burst out of the elevator like a storm system. Red dress again, red lipstick, red fury radiating from every pore. You son of a bitch, she snarled. You absolute snake. You fraud. You con artist. I was sitting at my desk, perfectly calm. Good morning, Catherine. Would you like some coffee? I want you to explain how you think you can get away with this. Firing me? M.E.? I built that company with my sister. I worked 70-hour weeks. I sacrificed relationships, health, everything. for Sterling Corporation. And you think you can just waltz in and throw me out? I didn't waltz, I said mildly. I worked systematically for 3 years to acquire controlling interest through legitimate business transactions. Then I exercised my rights as majority shareholder to restructure management. It's all very legal, very boring, very corporate. You're a parasite, a leech. You lived off my sister for 7 years, contributing nothing, and now you're trying to steal everything she built. I stood up slowly, walked around the desk, stopped about 6 feet away from her. Let me tell you what actually happened, I said. My voice was quiet, controlled. I built a company, a successful company. Your sister systematically dismantled that company, absorbed it into hers, and then spent 7 years making me feel like I should be grateful for the privilege of watching her succeed with my work. I'm not finished. The steel was back in my voice. You helped her. Every snide comment, every condescending look, every time you treated me like I was less than, like I was a burden, like I didn't deserve basic human respect. You enabled her worst behaviors and added your own cruelty on top. Catherine's face was flushed. She gave you everything. She gave me nothing I hadn't earned 10 times over. The software that powers 30% of Sterling Corporation's revenue, I built that. The logistics systems, mine. The supply chain innovations, mine. But she convinced me, convinced everyone, that I was the one who should be grateful. I walked back to my desk, sat down. You're fired, Catherine. Not because I'm vindictive, not because I want revenge, but because you're toxic. You create hostile work environments. You bully people. You use your proximity to power to make other people feel small. And I'm building a company that doesn't tolerate that anymore. I'll sue. Go ahead. I have documentation of every HR complaint ever filed against you, every hostile interaction, every instance of harassment. You want to go to court? Let's go. Let's put it all on public record. She stared at me. You've changed. No, I said. I stopped pretending to be who you wanted me to be. That's different. Victoria won't let this stand. She'll fight you. She'll destroy you. Victoria reports to me now, and if she tries to destroy me, she'll lose the only thing she actually cares about, her company. Catherine turned to leave, stopped at the elevator, looked back. You think you've won? She said. But you haven't. Not really. You might have the company, but you've lost her. You've lost your marriage. You've lost everything you supposedly cared about. I lost those things 7 years ago, I said. I was just too busy being the person you both wanted me to be to notice. All I did on Monday was acknowledge reality. The elevator doors closed on her furious face. I sat in the silence afterward, feeling that strange mix of satisfaction and hollowness that comes with confrontations like that. Winning doesn't always feel like winning. Sometimes it just feels like exhaustion, wearing a victory crown. Wednesday brought the first signs that reality was setting in for Victoria. The messages started at 5 a.m. Not calls this time, texts, one after another after another. 50 of them by the time I checked my phone at 7:30. David, please answer me. I need to understand what's happening. We can fix this. Whatever I did, we can fix it. I'm sorry about the dinner. I shouldn't have done that. Please talk to me. David, this isn't funny anymore. Answer your phone. I don't know what you want from me. Please. We're married. Doesn't that mean anything? I'm scared. I've never been scared before, and I don't know what to do with it. Please just tell me what you want. I'll do anything. Please. On and on. Desperation in digital form. The slow unraveling of someone who'd always been in control, suddenly realizing the control was gone. I read them all, felt the complicated tangle of emotions they evoked. Anger, satisfaction, pity, regret. But I didn't respond. At 7 a.m., Catherine started calling. 20 missed calls in 30 minutes. I blocked her number. At 10 a.m., Sarah Matthews from HR sent an email. Subject line, urgent. Please reconsider. I opened it. Mr. Sterling, I'm writing to request that you reconsider some of the recent personnel changes. Ms. Sterling Victoria has been CEO for 6 years and has consistently delivered exceptional results. Ms. Sterling Catherine has been a key part of the leadership team. Mr. Chen has been instrumental in our financial strategy. I understand there may have been disagreements, but I believe these issues can be resolved through dialogue rather than terminations and restructuring. Would you be willing to meet with the current leadership team to discuss a path forward that preserves continuity while addressing your concerns? Please, give us one chance. Give them one chance. This company has accomplished remarkable things. It would be a tragedy to dismantle that over personal conflicts. Respectfully, Sarah Matthews, HR Director. I read it twice. Then I drafted a response. Miss Matthews, thank you for your concern. However, you've misunderstood the situation. I'm not dismantling anything. I'm fixing it. The personnel changes are final. Mr. Chen failed in his fiduciary duties. Ms. Sterling Catherine created a hostile work environment. These are not negotiable points. Ms. Sterling remains as CEO specifically because I believe in continuity. But that continuity comes with accountability. We will move forward with the audit, with the ethics review, and with a comprehensive restructuring of company culture. This is not personal. This is business. David Sterling, Majority Shareholder. Send. The rest of Wednesday was quieter. The initial chaos was settling into something more manageable. The board members who'd voted with me sent messages of support. The ones who'd voted against me sent messages requesting meetings to discuss concerns. The company's lawyers called wanting clarification on about 17 different points of corporate governance. I handled it all methodically, calmly, like someone who knew exactly what he was doing, even though half the time I was making it up as I went along. Thursday afternoon at 2 p.m., Victoria came to the warehouse. She looked terrible. Still, professional Victoria would look professional at her own funeral, but terrible nonetheless. Hair pulled back too tight, makeup not quite perfect. Eyes red-rimmed, like she hadn't slept. She stood in my office doorway and stared around at the space, at the glass walls, at the city view, at the evidence of a whole life I'd built that she knew nothing about. How long? She asked quietly. 3 years, I said. I bought the building 4 years ago, started using it as an office 3 years ago. And I never knew. You never asked. She walked to the windows, stood there, looking out, her back to me. I called you 50 times. I know. You didn't answer. No. Why? Because I didn't want to. She turned to face me. Is this about the dinner? Because I'm sorry. I am. I shouldn't have done that. It was cruel and public and wrong. It's not about the dinner, I said. The dinner was just the final scene. The ending. The moment when we both stopped pretending. Pretending what? That we were partners, that we were equals, that this was a marriage instead of a corporate acquisition that happened to include a wedding ceremony. She flinched. Actually flinched. That's not fair. Isn't it? I pulled up a document on my computer. Turned the screen toward her. This is the merger agreement from 4 years ago. The one where I signed my company over to yours. Do you remember the terms? She looked at the screen, said nothing. 90-10 split on equity, I continued. You kept 90%. I got 10. For a company I'd built from nothing. And I signed it because you said it made sense for tax purposes, for operational efficiency, for our future together. It did make sense. It made sense for you. It gave you control of valuable IP while minimizing your financial exposure. It was a brilliant business move, but it wasn't a partnership. It was a takeover. Victoria sank into a chair. "What do you want, David? Why did you do all this? To punish me?" "No," I said. "To survive. To stop drowning. To remember that I'm actually a person with value and capability and worth, instead of the useless ornament you spent 7 years convincing me I was." She was crying now, quiet tears running down her face, smudging her imperfect makeup even more. "I love you," she whispered. "No," I said gently. "You love controlling things. You love winning. You love building empires. But love, actual love, that requires seeing the other person as human, as equal, as worth considering. And you never saw me that way. I don't think you were capable of it. I can change. Maybe you can, but that's work you'll have to do for yourself. Not for me, not to get me back, for yourself. Because the way you operate, the way you treat people, it's going to leave you very successful and very alone." I stood up, walked to the door. "This meeting is over, Victoria. I'll see you at the office on Friday for the company-wide address. We'll maintain a professional relationship. We'll work together to fix what you broke. But us, we're done." She didn't move, just sat there in the chair, crying silently, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. I walked out, left her in my office, left her to sit with what she'd lost, and I felt free. Friday morning, I woke up at 5 a.m. without an alarm. My body knew today was the day I'd stand in front of 300 employees and explain why their world had shifted on its axis. I made coffee. Strong, black, the way I used to drink it before Victoria suggested I try oat milk lattes because they were more sophisticated. I stood at the warehouse window watching the city wake up, lights blinking on in apartment buildings, early commuters on the streets below, delivery trucks making their rounds, the ordinary machinery of ordinary lives. There was something grounding about it. All these people going about their days, unaware that in a building across town, a small corporate drama was playing out that meant everything to the people involved and nothing to anyone else. Perspective. That's what 7 years of being made small teaches you. Your catastrophes are just background noise in someone else's life. I dressed in the same Savile Row suit from Monday. Armor. That's what good clothes are when you need them, to be armor that makes you look like you belong in rooms where decisions get made. Robert Chen called at 6:47 a.m. "Ready for today?" he asked. "As ready as I'll ever be." Victoria's team has been working overtime, preparing counter-messaging. They've got talking points, rebuttals, a whole strategy for undermining your credibility. Of course they do. Sarah Matthews is worried you're going to announce mass layoffs. Half the executive team thinks you're going to sell the company and gut it for parts. The rumor mill is out of control. "Good," I said. "Let them worry. Let them speculate. The truth will be more interesting than anything they've imagined." "You sound calm." "I am calm. That's either very good or very concerning." "Probably both," I said. The company-wide meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. in the main auditorium on the 3rd floor. I arrived at 9:30, entering through a side entrance to avoid the cluster of employees gathering in the lobby. Miranda, my assistant, met me in the hallway with a tablet and a concerned expression. "Sir, there's been a development. Miss Sterling Victoria requested time to speak before you address the company. She says it's important that employees hear from their CEO first." "Denied," I said. "This is my meeting. She can speak after if she wants, but I go first." "She's not going to like that." "She doesn't have to like it." Miranda nodded and made a note on her tablet. "There's also a group of senior staff asking to meet with you before the address. They have concerns about—" "No meetings. They'll hear everything everyone else hears at the same time." "Understood." She hesitated. "Sir, if I may, people are scared. Whatever you're planning to say, They need to know they're not all being fired. Then that's what I'll tell them. I walked to the auditorium's backstage area. Through the curtain, I could hear the sound of 300 people filing in, finding seats, murmuring to each other. The energy was anxious, uncertain, the kind of tension that builds when people know something big is coming but don't know if it's good or bad. At 9:55, Robert appeared backstage. 5 minutes. You good? I'm good. Your speech prepared? In my head. He raised an eyebrow. You're winging this? I'm speaking from the heart. There's a difference. At exactly 10 a.m., I walked on stage. The auditorium went quiet. 300 faces looking up at me, some curious, some hostile, some afraid. I saw Jennifer Park in the third row, arms crossed defensively. I saw junior analysts who'd barely been at the company 6 months, looking confused about why they were even here. I saw Victoria sitting in the front row, perfectly composed, face unreadable. I stood at the podium, adjusted the microphone, looked out at all of them. Good morning, I said. For those who don't know me, and I'm guessing that's most of you, my name is David Sterling. As of Monday morning, I became the majority shareholder of Sterling Corporation, which means I'm now responsible for this company's direction, its future, and its values. Silence. You could hear the air conditioning. I know there are rumors, I continued. Speculation about why this happened, what it means, whether you should all be updating your resumes. So let me address that directly. I'm not here to destroy this company. I'm here to fix it. Murmurs, shifting in seats. This company was built on brilliant ideas, on hard work, on innovation. But somewhere along the way, it lost its moral compass. It started treating people as expendable resources rather than valuable humans. It prioritized growth over ethics, profits over people, quarterly numbers over long-term sustainability. I saw Victoria's jaw tighten. I know this because I've been here. For years, I've sat in meetings, watched decisions get made, seen how the machine operates. I've seen hostile work environment complaints get buried. I've seen wage theft allegations get settled quietly. I've seen good people get chewed up and spit out because they didn't fit the culture of relentless, ruthless optimization. Jennifer Park was shaking her head. Others were looking at Victoria, gauging her reaction. So here's what's going to change, I said. Effective immediately, we're conducting a complete financial audit. Independent auditors, full transparency, everything above board. Any irregularities will be addressed. Any illegal or unethical practices will be corrected. I clicked to the first slide on the screen behind me. Second, we're establishing an ethics committee with board oversight. This committee will review all major business decisions, all employment practices, all financial arrangements. We're going to operate with integrity, or we're not going to operate at all. Next slide. Third, we're instituting a complete review of employment practices. Every HR complaint from the last 5 years will be re-examined. Every settlement with an NDA will be reviewed by independent counsel. If we've wronged people, we're going to make it right. I could see people sitting up straighter now, paying attention, some looking hopeful, others looking nervous about what might be uncovered. Fourth, we're changing the culture. No more 70-hour weeks as a badge of honor. No more expecting people to sacrifice their health, their relationships, their mental well-being for the sake of quarterly targets. We're going to build a company where talented people actually want to work, not just a place where they tolerate working until something better comes along. The energy in the room was shifting. I could feel it. I know some of you are thinking this sounds idealistic, naive, that you can't run a competitive company while also treating people ethically. And maybe you're right. Maybe we'll fail. Maybe prioritizing integrity over aggressive growth will mean we don't hit our targets. Maybe we'll lose market share to competitors who are willing to cut corners we're not. I paused. Let that sink in. But here's what I believe. I believe it's possible to be successful without being cruel. I believe you can build a profitable company without exploiting people. I believe the choice between ethics and success is a false choice. perpetuated by people who use business necessity as an excuse for behavior they'd never accept in their personal lives. Someone in the back started clapping. Then someone else. Then more. Within seconds, about half the auditorium was applauding. The other half sat silent, some skeptical, some calculating, some still processing. Victoria wasn't clapping. "I'm not promising this will be easy," I said once the applause died down. "Change never is. Some of you will resist it. Some of you will leave because you don't like the new direction. That's fine. But for those who stay, for those who want to be part of building something better, I promise you this: I will listen. I will be transparent. I will treat you like adults who deserve to understand the decisions that affect your lives." I clicked to the next slide. Questions? Hands shot up immediately. Dozens of them. I pointed to a woman in the middle section. "Yes?" She stood up. "I'm Rebecca Chen, Software Development Team. No relation to Marcus or Robert," she added, which got a nervous laugh. "My question is, what happens to current management? Specifically, what happens to Victoria Sterling?" All eyes swiveled to Victoria, then back to me. "Victoria remains as CEO," I said. "She built this company. She knows how to run it. But she now reports to me, and all major decisions require my approval. We're establishing clear accountability and oversight." Another hand. A young man in the front. "Tom Brennan, Junior Analyst. You mentioned financial irregularities. Should we be worried about the company's stability? About our jobs?" "The company is financially sound in terms of revenue and assets," I said. "What concerns me are the methods used to achieve that soundness. We may have pushed boundaries that shouldn't have been pushed, used accounting practices that are technically legal but ethically questionable. That's what the audit will determine. Your jobs are safe. The company's future is secure, but how we get to that future is going to change." More hands. I pointed to Jennifer Park. She stood, and I could see the calculation in her eyes. "Jennifer Park, VP of Operations. You're making a lot of promises about change and ethics and transparency, but you've been involved with this company for years. You were married to the CEO. You sat in on meetings. If things were so wrong, why didn't you speak up before? Why wait until you had the power to make a dramatic takeover?" The room went very quiet. "That's a fair question," I said. "The answer is complicated. Part of it is that I was complicit. I saw things that troubled me, and I stayed quiet because I didn't think I had standing to object. I didn't think anyone would listen to me. I didn't think I mattered enough to make a difference." I looked directly at Jennifer. "But the bigger part is that I was being actively diminished, systematically made to feel like my concerns weren't valid, my observations weren't reliable, my judgment wasn't sound. When someone spends years telling you you're not smart enough to understand what's really happening, eventually you start to believe them." Victoria's face had gone very pale. "I stopped believing them," I continued. "I started documenting, started learning, started building the capability to actually do something about what I was seeing. And yes, I waited until I had the power to make real change before I acted. Because speaking up without power is just noise. Speaking up with power is transformation." Jennifer sat down slowly. She looked troubled. Good. She should be troubled. Another hand. An older woman near the back. "Martha Reynolds, Accounting Department. Been here 11 years. What about the people who've been loyal to this company? Who worked hard? Who believed in what we were building? Do our years of service count for nothing just because the leadership was imperfect?" "Your service counts for everything," I said. "The people who do the actual work, who write the code, process the invoices, manage the clients, solve the problems. You're the ones who built the real value here. You're the ones who deserve better leadership, That's what I'm trying to provide. The questions kept coming. For 45 minutes, I stood there and answered every single one. Some were hostile, some were hopeful, some were just confused. I answered them all honestly, even when the honest answer was, "I don't know yet," or "We'll figure it out together." Finally, I held up a hand. Last question. A man in the middle section stood, older, gray-haired, wearing a t-shirt under his blazer. Gary Mitchell, lead developer. I've been writing code for 30 years. I've seen a lot of CEOs come and go, a lot of companies rise and fall. My question is simple. How do we know you're any different? How do we know this isn't just a different flavor of the same corporate bullshit wrapped up in pretty language about ethics and values? The room held its breath. You don't, I said. You don't know. I could be full of shit. I could be saying all of this because it sounds good, because it's what people want to hear, because it's good PR. Talk is cheap. Promises are easy. Any executive can stand up here and say the right things. I stepped away from the podium, walked to the front of the stage. The only way you'll know if I mean this is by watching what I do. Not what I say, what I do. Whether the audit actually happens. Whether the ethics committee has real power. Whether people who report problems get protected instead of punished. Whether we actually change or just talk about changing. I looked around the auditorium. So, I'm asking you to give me time, not trust. I haven't earned that yet. Just time. A few months to prove that actions match words. And if they don't, if I turn out to be just another corporate bullshitter who talks big and does nothing, then you can leave with a clear conscience, knowing you gave it a shot. Gary Mitchell nodded slowly, sat down. Fair enough, he said. I looked at my watch. I know I've run over. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. And thank you for the work you do. This company exists because of you. Let's make it a company worthy of that work. I walked off stage to scattered applause. Not universal, not overwhelming, but real, genuine. The kind of applause that means people are thinking, considering, maybe even believing. Backstage, Robert was grinning. That was good, really good. You got them thinking. You got them engaged. Some of them, I said. Others are probably already typing up resumes. Let them. The ones who stay will be the ones worth keeping. Victoria appeared in the hallway. She'd come around from the auditorium. Her face was composed, but I could see the tension in her shoulders, the tight set of her jaw. That was quite a performance, she said. It wasn't a performance. It was the truth. You made me look like a villain in front of my entire company. I made you look like what you are, a brilliant business person who lost sight of the human cost of success. If that makes you uncomfortable, good. Discomfort is the first step toward growth. She stepped closer. You're enjoying this, destroying everything I built. I'm not destroying anything. I'm trying to save it. Save it from the inevitable collapse that comes when you build on a foundation of exploitation and ethical shortcuts. Save it from the lawsuits and investigations and public scandal that would have happened eventually when someone less sympathetic exposed what I found. You're so righteous now, she said. So certain. It's almost funny. The man who couldn't make a decision without asking my opinion first is suddenly the arbiter of ethics and morality. That man was who you wanted me to be, I said quietly. Uncertain, dependent, easy to control, but that was never really me. It was just the version of me that let you feel powerful. Victoria opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I did love you. I do love you. I know you don't believe that, but it's true. Maybe it is, I said. But your love was predicated on me being less than you, on me needing you more than you needed me. That's not love. That's dominance. with affection sprinkled on top. "And your love?" she asked. "What was that predicated on?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. I think I loved the person I hoped you could be. The person you were when we first met, before the ambition and the empire building and the need to win consumed everything else. But that person, if she ever really existed, got lost somewhere along the way. "She's still here," Victoria whispered. "Then maybe you should spend some time finding her again," I said. "Not for me, for yourself. Because the version of you standing in front of me right now, she's brilliant and powerful and successful, but she's also lonely. And she's going to stay lonely until she learns that people aren't assets to be managed." I walked past her toward the elevator. "The audit team starts Monday. Cooper, your full cooperation with them. This is your chance to show that you can change. Don't waste it." The elevator doors closed before she could respond. I rode down to the lobby feeling strange. Not triumphant, not victorious, just tired. The kind of tired that comes from carrying something heavy for so long that when you finally put it down, your body doesn't quite know how to adjust to the absence of weight. Outside, the city was bright and cold and indifferent. People walking past on their way to lunch, to meetings, to lives that had nothing to do with corporate takeovers or failed marriages or the complicated mathematics of revenge and redemption. My phone buzzed. A text from Michael. "Heard it went well. Proud of you. Coffee tomorrow?" I typed back, "Yeah, tomorrow. We need to talk about the next phase." Another text, this one from my mother. "Your father and I saw the company statement. Call us when you can. We love you." And one more, from a number I didn't recognize. "Mr. Sterling, this is Gary Mitchell from the meeting. You asked for time to prove yourself. I'm giving it to you. Don't fuck it up. Gary." I smiled, despite myself. Gary was right. I had time. Not much time. Corporate patience is measured in quarters, not years, but enough time to either deliver on my promises or prove myself to be just another suit with good intentions and poor follow-through. I pulled out my phone and opened the Notes app. Started typing. Phase 1. Stabilization. Complete. Acquire controlling interest. Remove toxic management. Establish oversight. Phase 2. Transformation in PRAS. Financial audit. Ethics review. Culture change. Rebuild trust. Phase 3. Preparation. 6 to 12 months. Position company for sale. Establish sustainable practices. Document success metrics. Phase 4. Liberation. 12 to 18 months. Sell Sterling Corp. Start fresh with Michael. Build something new. Build something better. I looked at the list. It was ambitious. Maybe too ambitious. Maybe impossible. But 3 days ago, taking control of Sterling Corporation had seemed impossible too. And yet here I was. I put the phone away and started walking. Not toward the warehouse, not toward any specific destination, just walking through the city, letting my feet take me where they wanted to go. For the first time in 7 years, I had nowhere I had to be, no one I had to answer to, no role I had to perform. I was just David Sterling, majority shareholder, temporary CEO, soon to be architect of whatever came next. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. The auditors arrived on Monday morning like a surgical team preparing for a complicated operation, 4 of them, led by a woman named Dr. Patricia Wong, yes. She had a PhD in forensic accounting, which should tell you everything about how serious this was going to be. I met them in the conference room at 8 a.m. Robert Chen was there. So was Victoria, looking like she hadn't slept in days. The carefully maintained perfection was cracking at the edges, makeup couldn't quite hide the shadows under her eyes, and her hands kept fidgeting with her pen. Click, click, click. A nervous tick I'd never seen before. "Mr. Sterling, Doctor, Wong said, shaking my hand with a grip that was all business. We've reviewed the preliminary documentation you provided. It's extensive. I'm thorough, I said. That's one word for it. She opened her briefcase and pulled out a tablet. Before we begin, I need to establish scope and authority. We'll need unrestricted access to all financial records, all email servers, all internal communications. We'll need to interview key personnel, and we'll need assurance that no one will be instructed to obstruct our work. Victoria's pen clicked faster. You have complete authority, I said. Full access to everything. Anyone who obstructs your work answers to me. Dr. Wong looked at Victoria. Miss Sterling, do you understand and agree to these terms? Victoria's jaw was tight. I understand. Do you agree? A pause. Then, yes. Good. Dr. Wong pulled up a document on her tablet. Let's start with the revenue recognition practices for Q2 through Q4 of last year. Specifically, these 3 accounts. She turned the tablet to show a list of client names. Can you explain the booking methodology used here? In quote. 1 for the works playing the reside, 2 on race. 1 for the works playing the side, the storing 1 for the works place. In quote. 1 for the works place. End quote. 1 for the works place. Victoria leaned forward to look. Her face went very still. Those were standard enterprise contracts, multi-year deals with milestone-based recognition. Except the milestones weren't met, Dr. Wong said. According to the project management records we've reviewed, 2 of these 3 projects were significantly behind schedule. Yet revenue was booked as if deliverables had been completed on time. We had written assurances from the clients that they considered the milestones substantially complete. Written assurances that were obtained after the revenue was already booked, Doctor. Wong interrupted. That's not how GAAP works, Miss Sterling. You don't book revenue and then go get retroactive justification. Victoria's face flushed. We were confident the milestones would be met. Confidence isn't the standard. Completion is the standard. I watched this exchange without saying anything. This was why you hired people like Dr. Wong. She didn't care about egos or reputations or who was in charge. She cared about numbers and rules and the truth that lived in spreadsheets. Robert Chen was taking notes, his expression professionally neutral, but I could see the glint of satisfaction in his eyes. He'd warned Victoria about aggressive revenue recognition 3 years ago, back when he was just a board member she could ignore. Now his warnings were being vindicated in real time. Let's move on, Dr. Wong said. Related party transactions. You have a consulting agreement with Sterling Advisory Services. Can you explain the nature of this relationship? Victoria shifted in her seat. Sterling Advisory provides strategic consulting on major projects. They're specialists in our industry sector. And who owns Sterling Advisory Services? Silence. Miss Sterling, Dr. Wong prompted. My mother owns 60%, Victoria said quietly. My sister Catherine owns 40%. And how much did Sterling Corporation pay Sterling Advisory Services last year? I'd have to check the exact $2.4 million, Dr. Wong said. For consulting services that, based on the documentation we've reviewed, consisted primarily of attending meetings and providing advice that was largely ignored. Would you say that's a fair characterization? They provided valuable insights. Miss Sterling, I'm not questioning whether your mother and sister are intelligent people. I'm questioning whether $2.4 million represents fair market value for the services actually rendered. And more importantly, I'm questioning whether these transactions were properly disclosed to the board and shareholders. Victoria looked at me. For the first time since this meeting started, she looked genuinely frightened. David, this isn't what you think. I don't think anything, I said. That's what the audit is for. To establish facts, not opinions. Dr. Wong continued. We've identified 17 similar issues in our preliminary review. Each one will require detailed investigation. This process will take approximately 6 to 8 weeks. During that time, we'll need regular access to Miss Sterling, to the CFO. She glanced at her notes. Oh, I see. Mr. Chen is no longer with the company. Who's handling CFO duties currently? We're operating with an interim controller, I said. Jennifer Park has been temporarily reassigned to oversee financial operations until we can hire a permanent replacement. I'll need to interview Miss Park as well, and anyone else who was involved in financial decision-making over the past 3 years. The meeting went on for another 2 hours. Each revelation was like a small detonation. Not enough to destroy the building, but enough to show how many cracks were in the foundation. When the auditors finally left to set up their workspace, Victoria slumped in her chair like someone had cut her strings. "This is going to destroy the company," she said. "No," I said. "This is going to save it." If we'd waited another year, if someone else had found these issues, first the SEC, a whistleblower, an investigative journalist, then it would destroy the company. This way, we control the narrative. We fix the problems. We demonstrate accountability. "You're enjoying this." Her voice was bitter, watching me squirm, watching everything I built get picked apart. "I'm not enjoying it. I'm enduring it. There's a difference." Robert Chen stood up. "I'll let you two talk. David, I'll be in my office if you need me." After he left, silence filled the conference room like water, heavy, suffocating. "How did you know?" Victoria finally asked. "About the revenue recognition, the related party transactions, all of it. You sat in those meetings. You never said anything. I said plenty. You just didn't listen." "That's not true." "Year 3, I said. The Meridian account. I questioned whether we should be booking that revenue before the software was fully deployed. You told me I didn't understand enterprise sales cycles. You told me to trust you." Victoria's face flickered with something recognition, maybe. Or regret. "Year 4, I continued. I asked about the consulting fees to your mother's firm. You said it was industry standard to pay for strategic advice. I asked if we'd compared rates with other consultants. You said I was being paranoid about family involvement." "I remember," she whispered. "Year 5. I suggested we needed stronger internal controls. You said I was trying to bureaucratize a nimble organization. You said I didn't understand how fast-moving companies operate." I stood up and walked to the window. The city below was doing its thing. Cars moving, people walking, the relentless forward motion of millions of individual lives. So I stopped saying things out loud, I said, and I started writing them down. Every concern, every question, every time my instinct said something was wrong. I documented it all, not to use against you. At first, just to prove to myself that I wasn't crazy, that my judgment was sound, that the doubts I had were valid. And then, Victoria's voice was small. And then it became insurance. Then it became evidence. Then it became the foundation for everything that happened last Monday. Victoria stood up and walked to stand beside me at the window. We stood there, side by side, not touching, looking out at the same city from very different perspectives. "I did love you," she said. "I know you don't believe that, but I did. I do." "I believe you believe that," I said. "But Victoria, your love was conditional. It existed only as long as I stayed small enough not to threaten your sense of control. The moment I started growing, started questioning, started becoming my own person again, that love evaporated. That's not fair." "Friday night," I said, "in front of 30 people. You tore up my paycheck. You called me a leech. You threw me out like garbage. Where was the love in that?" She flinched. "I was angry. You'd been distant for weeks, pulling away. I felt like I was losing you, and I didn't know why." You were losing me because you'd already lost me. I'd been gone for months. I just hadn't told you yet. Tears were running down her face now. Real ones. Not the calculated tears of someone trying to manipulate, but the ugly, honest tears of someone confronting a truth they'd been avoiding. What do I do, she asked, to fix this, to fix us? There is no us to fix, I said gently. That's what I've been trying to tell you. We're not married anymore in any way that matters. We're business associates now. Colleagues. You report to me. That's the relationship. We could try. No, we couldn't, because nothing has fundamentally changed about who you are or how you operate. You're still the person who valued control over connection, power over partnership, success over everything else. I turned to face her. And that's okay. You don't have to change for me, but I'm not going to pretend anymore. I'm not going to make myself smaller so you can feel bigger. I'm done with that version of myself. Victoria wiped her eyes, took a breath. When she spoke again, her voice was steadier. What happens now? With the audit. With the company. The audit continues. We cooperate fully. Whatever they find, we disclose. We fix what can be fixed. We make restitution where restitution is owed. And we build better systems so it doesn't happen again. And if the findings are bad enough, then we deal with it. Together, as colleagues, we protect the employees. We protect the shareholders. We do the right thing, even if it's hard, even if it's painful, even if it costs us. She nodded slowly. And after the audit is done and the company is fixed, after you run the company under proper oversight, or you don't, that'll be your choice. But either way, I'm not staying forever. This isn't my endgame, Victoria. This company was never supposed to be my life's work. What is your endgame? I smiled slightly. I'm still figuring that out, but I know it involves building something new, something that's mine from the ground up, something I can be proud of. She looked at me for a long moment. You've changed. No, I've just stopped pretending to be someone I'm not. Next Vater. Next Vater. Next Vater. Next Vater. I miss him, she said softly. The man you were pretending to be. He was easier. He was dying, I said, slowly, quietly, politely, but dying nonetheless. What you're looking at now is what survival looks like. My phone buzzed. Text from Dr. Wong. We need to discuss the offshore accounts. Conference room B, 30 minutes. I showed Victoria the message. You should probably prepare yourself. This is going to get worse before it gets better. She straightened her shoulders, drew herself up. The CEO mask sliding back into place, even if it didn't fit quite as perfectly as it used to. I can handle it. I know you can. That's never been in question. Brog. There's Will Hustonum. That's never been in question. There's Will Hustonum's Will Hustonum's Will Hustonum's. There's Will Hustonum's. The next 3 weeks were brutal. Dr. Wong's team worked 12-hour days, pulling apart every financial statement, every contract, every transaction over the past 5 years. They found things. Lots of things. Most were in that gray area between legal and illegal, ethical and unethical, the kind of aggressive accounting that technically complies with regulations but violates the spirit of why those regulations exist. Some things were worse. The offshore accounts, for instance. Victoria had been routing consulting fees through subsidiaries in Ireland and the Cayman Islands, using transfer pricing arrangements that minimized tax liability in ways that were creative. Legal, her lawyers insisted, but aggressive enough that if the IRS decided to take a closer look, there would be problems. Then there was the stock option backdating. Minor, relatively speaking, but still fraud. Technical fraud. White-collar fraud. the kind that gets settled with fines rather than prison time. But fraud nonetheless. And the vendor relationships. Several of Sterling Corporation's suppliers were owned by friends of Victoria's family. The contracts were structured to favor these suppliers in ways that cost the company money. Not enough to be obvious, just enough to add up over time. Each discovery was like finding another crack in the dam. Individually, manageable. Collectively, catastrophic if left unaddressed. I spent those 3 weeks in meetings, with auditors, with lawyers, with board members, with Victoria, who grew quieter and more brittle with each new revelation. The woman who'd walked into that first audit meeting with confidence was disappearing, replaced by someone who looked haunted. On a Wednesday afternoon in week 3, I found her in her office, staring at her computer screen. She didn't look up when I knocked. "They found the Harrison settlement," she said. I remembered the Harrison settlement, sexual harassment claim from 2 years ago. Senior VP had created a hostile environment for 3 female employees. Victoria had settled out of court, paid $400,000, made everyone sign NDAs, and quietly moved the VP to a different division. "I know," I said. "We should have fired him. I should have fired him. Instead, I protected him because he was bringing in $15 million a year in revenue." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. $15 million. I sold those women's dignity for $15 million. I sat down across from her desk. "Why didn't you fire him?" "Because I was afraid. Afraid of losing the revenue. Afraid of the optics. Afraid of admitting that I'd hired someone who turned out to be a predator." She finally looked at me. "I made the business decision, the pragmatic decision, the decision a CEO is supposed to make to protect the company. That's what you told yourself. That's what I believed." She closed her laptop. "Do you know what Dr. Wong asked me this morning? She asked if I thought those 3 women would have rather had justice or had NDAs and money." And I realized I'd never asked myself that question. I just assumed money was an acceptable substitute for accountability. "It's not too late to make it right," I said. "Isn't it? The NDAs are signed. The settlement is done. The VP retired 6 months ago, with full benefits. The NDAs can be voided if they were signed under duress or to cover up illegal activity. The women can be contacted, offered the chance to speak, given the justice they were denied." Victoria looked at me like I'd suggested burning the building down. That would open the company to lawsuits, to public scrutiny, to accountability, I finished, which is exactly what we need. "This could destroy us." "Or it could save us. Show that we're serious about change, that we're willing to acknowledge past mistakes and make them right, even when it's costly." She was quiet for a long time. Then, "When did you become so brave?" "I'm not brave. I'm just tired of being afraid. There's a difference." That evening, I had dinner with Michael at a small Italian place downtown. The kind of restaurant where the owner knows your name and the pasta is made fresh every day and nobody talks about quarterly earnings or market share. "You look exhausted," Michael said after we'd ordered. 3 weeks of audit findings will do that to you." "That bad?" "Worse than I expected. Better than worst case scenario, but bad enough that we're going to be dealing with fallout for months." Michael poured wine. Good wine, not expensive wine, there's a difference. "Any regrets?" I thought about it, really thought about it. "No," I said, "not about taking control, not about the audit, not about any of it, but I'm exhausted in a way that's not just physical. It's like psychic exhaustion, from having to be strong all the time, from having to make hard decisions, from being the one everyone is angry at or afraid of or expecting miracles from." "Welcome to leadership," Michael said wryly. "I don't want to be a leader. Not like this. Not running a company I never wanted. Fixing problems I didn't create. Managing people who resent me for holding them accountable. So what do you want?" "I want to build something. With you. With people I trust. Something small at first. Something that grows organically because it's good, not because we're gaming the system or cutting corners or exploiting people. Michael raised his glass. To building something better. We clinked glasses. 6 months, I said. Maybe 8. However long it takes to stabilize Sterling Corp and position it for sale. Then we start fresh. I'll be ready, Michael said. My phone buzzed. Text from Victoria. Can we talk? Not about work, about us. I showed Michael the message. You going to respond? He asked. Eventually, but not tonight. Tonight, I'm just having dinner with a friend, remembering what it's like to be a person instead of a problem solver. We talked for 3 hours about everything except Sterling Corporation, about old times, new possibilities, the companies we'd build, the mistakes we wouldn't repeat. By the time we left the restaurant, I felt lighter, more human, less like a machine processing crisis after crisis. I walked back to my hotel. I was still living in the hotel, still hadn't found a permanent place, and stood at the window looking out at the city. My phone buzzed again. Victoria, calling this time. I answered. Hi, she said. Her voice was soft, vulnerable. Hi. I know you said we're just colleagues now. I know you don't want to try again. But I need to tell you something. Okay. I'm sorry. Really sorry. Not sorry I got caught. Not sorry the audit is happening. Sorry for how I treated you. For making you small. For taking your work and calling it mine. For humiliating you when you deserved respect. For loving you conditionally when you deserved unconditional acceptance. I sat down on the bed. Thank you for saying that. I don't expect it to change anything. I just needed you to know. I know, I said. And Victoria, for what it's worth, I'm sorry too. For not speaking up sooner. For letting resentment build instead of addressing problems. For planning a takeover instead of trying marriage counseling. She laughed. Actually, laughed. Marriage counseling wouldn't have fixed us. Probably not. David, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think I can change? Really change? Become the kind of person who doesn't need control to feel secure? I thought about it. I don't know, but I think you can try. I think you can build different habits, make different choices. Surround yourself with people who'll call you out when you slip into old patterns. Will you be one of those people? For now, I said, while we're working together. After that, we'll see. That's fair. We talked for a few more minutes. Not about work, not about the audit, just talking, the way we used to, back in the beginning, before everything got complicated. When we hung up, I felt something I hadn't expected to feel. Hope. Not hope that we'd get back together. That ship had sailed. But hope that maybe, on the other side of all this pain and transformation, we'd both end up as better versions of ourselves. And that was worth something. The Wall Street Journal broke the story on a Thursday morning. Sterling Corporation under internal investigation. Majority shareholder orders sweeping audit following ownership change. The article was surprisingly accurate. Someone had leaked details. Not everything, but enough. Revenue recognition issues. Related party transactions. A culture of aggressive accounting practices. The piece was careful to note that no criminal charges had been filed, that the company was cooperating with its own independent auditors, that this was a voluntary disclosure. But the damage was done. By noon, the stock price had dropped 12%. By end of day, 17%. Not catastrophic. The company was privately held for the most part, so the stock wasn't widely traded, but enough to hurt. Enough to make investors nervous. Enough to make the board's phones ring nonstop. I was in my warehouse office when Robert Chen called. Have you seen the journal piece? He asked. Reading it now. The board is panicking. Harrison wants an emergency meeting. 3 institutional investors are demanding explanations, and the SEC called. I sat up straighter. The SEC? They're not opening an investigation. Yet. But they want to know if we plan to file any amended financial statements. If there's anything we need to disclose that hasn't been disclosed. What did you tell them? That we're conducting an internal audit. That we'll share findings when appropriate. And that we're committed to full compliance with all regulations. Good. That's the right answer. David, this is going to get messy. Once the SEC starts asking questions, even informal questions, other agencies start paying attention. The IRS, state regulators. We could be looking at multiple investigations, civil penalties, even criminal referrals if they find something egregious enough. I know. Do you? Because this isn't just about fixing the company anymore. This is about survival, about whether Sterling Corporation exists in 6 months. I looked out at the city. The view from the warehouse was different than from Sterling Tower. Lower, grittier, more honest somehow. Then we survive. We cooperate. We disclose. We take our lumps. And we come out the other side stronger. You're betting a lot on this approach. I'm betting everything on this approach, because the alternative, trying to hide it, minimize it, spin it, that's how companies actually die. That's how executives go to prison. We face this head on, or we don't face it at all. Robert was quiet for a moment. All right, I'll set up the board meeting. Tomorrow morning. Be prepared for them to be hostile. When are they ever not hostile? He laughed despite himself. Fair point. The board meeting was exactly as hostile as predicted. I walked into the Sterling Tower boardroom at 8 a.m. Friday to 9 angry faces. Even Harrison, who'd been supportive through the takeover, looked grim. 17%, said Margaret Knowles, the board member who'd voted against me in the original takeover. 17% loss in stock value in 1 day. Do you understand what you've done? I understand we're acknowledging problems that were already there, I said, taking my seat at the head of the table, problems that would have come out eventually, probably in a much more damaging way. You're destroying shareholder value. I'm protecting long-term shareholder value by addressing short-term pain. Would you rather we'd waited? Let these issues fester until the SEC showed up with subpoenas instead of phone calls. Margaret opened her mouth. Closed it. Harrison leaned forward. What's the endgame here, David? You conduct this audit, you find all these issues, you disclose them. Then what? How do we recover? We implement the Ethics Committee recommendations. We reform our practices. We bring in new management where necessary. We demonstrate that Sterling Corporation is committed to operating with integrity. And then, in 12 to 18 months, we sell to a buyer who values that integrity. The room went very quiet. Sell? Margaret's voice was sharp. You're planning to sell the company? Eventually, yes. This was never about building an empire. It was about fixing a broken system and then letting it go to someone who can sustain it properly. You can't just... I can, I said. I'm the majority shareholder. And I'm telling you now, clearly and transparently, that my goal is to stabilize this company, restore its reputation, and then sell it to a responsible buyer. If that's not acceptable to you, you're free to resign from the board. No one moved. Good, I said. Then let's talk about the SEC. Robert? But this was hunted by the press. Have a cause and a court. Robert Chen distributed folders. The SEC has sent an informal inquiry letter. They want documentation on 3 specific areas: revenue recognition for enterprise contracts, related party transactions, and stock option grants. We have 30 days to respond. Are we going to fight it? Someone asked. No, I said. We're going to cooperate fully. We're going to provide everything they ask for and more. We're going to be the model of transparency. That could expose us to liability. We're already exposed. The question is whether we face that exposure honestly, or whether we try to hide it and make everything worse. The meeting went on for 3 hours. By the end, we had a plan. Full cooperation with the SEC, proactive disclosure of audit findings, a press release announcing our commitment to reform, and a timeline for implementing new oversight mechanisms. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't even good, but it was honest. When everyone filed out, Victoria lingered behind. "That was brave," she said. "That was necessary." Same thing sometimes. She sat down in the chair across from me. "I've been thinking about what you said, about making things right with those 3 women, the harassment settlement. And I want to do it. Void the NDAs. Give them the opportunity to speak if they want to. Offer additional compensation if they feel the original settlement was inadequate." I studied her face. She looked tired, but resolute. "Why?" "Because you were right. Money isn't a substitute for justice. And I can't build a better company, a better version of myself, if I'm still protecting the mistakes of the past." "It's going to cost us, financially and reputationally." "I know, but some costs are worth paying." I nodded slowly. "All right, let's do it. Have Sarah Matthews reach out through their lawyers. Make the offer. Let them decide." Victoria stood to leave, then paused. "David, thank you for not giving up on this company, on me." "I haven't given up on the company. The jury's still out on you." She smiled slightly. "Fair enough." The next 2 weeks were a blur of media attention, legal consultations, and damage control. The Business Insider ran a follow-up piece. David Sterling, the quiet accountant who became a corporate reformer. It painted me as some kind of crusader, which made me deeply uncomfortable. I wasn't a crusader. I was just a man who got tired of being complicit. Forbes published an opinion piece titled, "Is Radical Transparency the Future of Corporate Governance?" using Sterling Corporation as a case study. The article was mostly positive, arguing that our approach could be a model for how companies should handle internal problems. But not all coverage was positive. A financial blog called The Street Sage published a scathing takedown. David Sterling's revenge fantasy might destroy Sterling Corp. The piece accused me of being vindictive, of prioritizing personal vendettas over shareholder value, of using the audit as a weapon against my ex-wife. That one stung because it wasn't entirely wrong. There was an element of vengeance in all this. I'd be lying if I said there wasn't satisfaction in watching Victoria squirm, in seeing the empire she'd built on exploitation and corners-cutting face consequences. But it wasn't just revenge. It couldn't be. Because if it was only revenge, I'd have destroyed everything and walked away. Instead, I was trying to rebuild. I called my mother that evening. "I saw the article in The Street Sage," she said. "Don't read the comments." "I already did, David." "I know, I shouldn't have, but I needed to know what people were saying." "And?" "Half think I'm a hero. Half think I'm a vindictive ex-husband destroying a company out of spite. Some think I'm both." My mother was quiet for a moment. "What do you think?" "I think the truth is complicated. I think I'm trying to do the right thing for reasons that aren't entirely pure. I think you can be angry and ethical at the same time. I think revenge and justice can look awfully similar from certain angles." "That's very mature of you." "I don't feel mature. I feel exhausted." "That's what growth feels like sometimes," she said. "Exhausting, painful, worth it in the end, but hard in the moment." We talked for another hour. She told me about my father's retirement plans, about their garden, about ordinary life happening in the background while my world was exploding. It was grounding, necessary. When we hung up, I felt steadier. Monday morning brought new developments. Dr. Wong requested an emergency meeting. When I arrived at the conference room, she had her tablet out and her serious face on, which was saying something, because her normal face was already pretty serious. "We found something," she said without preamble. My stomach dropped. How bad? My stomach dropped. Bad enough that I needed to bring it to you immediately. We were reviewing the acquisition of Meridian Systems from 3 years ago. I remember Meridian. Software company. Sterling Corp bought them for $42 million. Except Sterling Corp didn't pay $42 million. They paid $38 million. The extra $4 million went to a consulting firm that helped broker the deal. That's standard practice. Finder's fees. Would be standard if the consulting firm was legitimate. But this firm? It's a shell company registered in Delaware. No employees, no office, no actual consulting services provided. And it's owned by... She turned her tablet to show me a corporate registration document. Catherine Sterling. I stared at the screen. Victoria's sister skimmed $4 million off an acquisition? That's what it looks like. And she probably would have gotten away with it. Except the Meridian founders kept detailed records of the negotiation. They thought they were getting $42 million. Sterling Corp's books show $42 million paid, but only $38 million reached Meridian. The $4 million went to Catherine's shell company. Does Victoria know? Doctor. Wong shook her head. I haven't told her yet. I wanted to brief you first. This is fraud. Clear, unambiguous fraud. We're going to have to report this. To who? The SEC. The DOJ, probably. This isn't a gray area. This is criminal activity. I sat down heavily. Catherine. Vindictive, cruel Catherine, who'd shoved me out the door while 30 people laughed. Catherine, who'd called me a parasite and a leech. Catherine, who it turned out, was an actual thief. The irony was almost funny. Almost. What happens if we report this? I asked. Catherine gets investigated, probably arrested. The $4 million gets clawed back if possible. Sterling Corporation cooperates and probably avoids prosecution, since this appears to be individual malfeasance rather than company policy. And if we don't report it? Doctor. Wong looked at me like I'd suggested setting the building on fire. Then we become complicit. Then we're covering up a crime. Then when it comes out, and it will come out, the company goes down too. I know. I just needed to hear it out loud. Do you want me to tell Victoria? Or do you want to? BA. Want me to tell Victoria? Want me to tell Victoria? I thought about it. Victoria and Catherine were sisters. Despite everything, despite Catherine's toxicity, despite her role in my humiliation, they were family. This would destroy Victoria almost as much as it would destroy Catherine. I'll tell her, I said. Give me the documentation. I'll handle it. I found Victoria in her office an hour later. She was on a call, but she wrapped it up when she saw my face. What's wrong? She asked. I closed the door, sat down across from her, put Dr. Wong's tablet on the desk between us. The audit found something, I said. Her face went pale. How bad? Catherine embezzled $4 million from the Meridian acquisition. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. Victoria stared at the tablet like it might bite her. No, she finally said. No. Catherine wouldn't. The documentation is there. Shell company in Delaware. Fake consulting fees. Money that never reached Meridian. It's all there, Victoria. She's my sister. I know. She made mistakes. But she wouldn't steal. She wouldn't commit fraud. I didn't say anything. Just let her process. Victoria picked up the tablet with shaking hands. Started reading. Her face went through a journey. Denial. Confusion. Recognition. Horror. And finally, something that looked like grief. Oh, God, she whispered. She really did it. We have to report it. You know that, right? We can't cover this up. She'll go to prison. Maybe. Probably. Yes. Victoria set down the tablet, put her face in her hands. Her shoulders were shaking. I wanted to comfort her, despite everything, despite the divorce we hadn't finalized yet. Despite the 7 years of being made small, I wanted to reach across the desk and tell her it would be okay. But I didn't, because it wouldn't be okay. And comfort, at this moment, would be a lie. What do I do? Victoria asked, her voice muffled by her hands. You let the process happen. You cooperate with the investigation. You don't warn Catherine or give her time to hide assets or flee. You do the right thing, even though it's your sister. She looked up at me. Her eyes were red, makeup smeared. How do you do that? How do you just make the hard choice and live with it? I don't know if I can live with it yet. I just know it's the only choice that lets me look at myself in the mirror. Victoria wiped her eyes, took a shaky breath. Okay, report it. Do what needs to be done. You're sure? No, but you're right. It's the only choice. I stood to leave. David? I turned back. If you hadn't taken over the company, if you hadn't ordered the audit, would any of this have come to light? I thought about it. Probably not. Catherine would have gotten away with it. The revenue recognition issues would have continued. The hostile work environment would have persisted. Everything would have just kept getting worse until it collapsed spectacularly. So you saved us. I gave us a chance to save ourselves. There's a difference. I left her office and walked to the elevator, pressed the button for the ground floor. As I descended 42, 41, 40, 39, I thought about the cost of doing the right thing. Catherine would be arrested, prosecuted, probably convicted. Victoria would lose her sister, at least temporarily. The company would face more media scrutiny, more questions, more doubt. And I would have to live with being the person who set all of this in motion. If you've ever had to choose between loyalty and integrity, you know it's not a simple choice. It's not clean. It's messy and painful, and it haunts you afterward. But simple isn't always right, and pain isn't always wrong. Sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same thing. The elevator reached the ground floor. The doors opened. I walked out into the lobby, into the city, into whatever came next. And I kept walking. Catherine was arrested on a Wednesday morning at 6:47 a.m. I know the exact time because the media trucks showed up at Sterling Tower by 8:15, and the footage of federal agents walking her out of her apartment building in handcuffs was playing on loop by 8:30. I watched it on the conference room screen with Robert Chen and Dr. Wong. Catherine looked smaller in the footage than she'd ever looked in person. No red dress this time. Just sweatpants and a t-shirt, hair uncombed, face pale and shocked as cameras flashed. 4 counts of wire fraud, Robert said, reading from his phone. 2 counts of money laundering. 1 count of falsifying business records. The U.S. Attorney's Office is not messing around. Good, I said. Then, because that sounded too harsh, I mean, she stole $4 million. There should be consequences. Doctor. Wong closed her laptop. This concludes the major findings of our audit. We'll have a full report ready by end of week, but the substantive work is done. What you do with our findings is up to you. Recommend any criminal charges besides Catherine's case? I asked. No. The revenue recognition issues were aggressive, but not criminal. The related party transactions should have been disclosed better, but don't rise to fraud. Catherine's theft appears to be individual action, not company policy. She paused. You got lucky, Mr. Sterling. This could have been much worse. After she left, Robert and I sat in silence for a moment. Victoria? I asked. Hasn't come in. Sarah Matthews says she called in sick. First time in 6 years. I wasn't surprised. Your sister getting arrested for fraud isn't exactly a show-up-to-work kind of day. I called Victoria's cell. It rang 4 times before she answered. I saw. she said. Her voice was hollow. I saw the footage. I'm sorry. Are you? Really? And? Really? I thought about it. Yes. I'm sorry you're hurting. I'm sorry your sister made choices that led to this. I'm not sorry. Justice is happening. She called me from jail. She was crying, begging me to help her, to fix this. Victoria's voice cracked, and I had to tell her I couldn't. That I wouldn't. That was the right thing to do. It doesn't feel right. It feels like I'm abandoning family. She abandoned you the moment she stole from your company. From you. Silence. Then, my mother called. She's blaming me. Says if I'd been a better CEO, a better sister, Catherine wouldn't have needed to steal. That this is my fault for creating a culture of greed. The irony was almost too much. Victoria's mother, who'd been collecting $1.4 million a year in consulting fees for doing essentially nothing, was lecturing about greed. Your mother is wrong, I said. Catherine made her own choices. You're not responsible for those choices. Everyone's going to think I knew, that I helped her cover it up. The audit cleared you. Dr. Wong's report shows this was Catherine acting alone. You didn't know. You didn't benefit. You're a victim here too. I don't feel like a victim. I feel like an idiot. How did I not see it? How did I not notice $4 million going missing? Because you trusted her. Because she was family. Because we all have blind spots for the people we love. Another silence. Then, quietly, thank you. For what? For not saying, I told you so. For not pointing out that I should have listened to you years ago about Catherine. For just being kind when you have every right not to be. You're welcome, I said. The media circus lasted 3 days. Every business publication ran stories about the Sterling Corporation scandal. Cable news brought on ethics experts and former prosecutors to discuss the case. Catherine's lawyer gave a statement about her client's innocence and intention to fight the charges vigorously. But by Friday, the narrative started to shift. The New York Times ran a piece titled, How One Company Chose Transparency Over Cover-Up. It praised Sterling Corporation's decision to conduct a voluntary audit, to disclose findings proactively, to cooperate with authorities rather than obstruct. The article quoted an anonymous board member, definitely Harrison, saying, David Sterling could have buried this. He had the power to make the whole thing go away, quietly. Instead, he chose the harder path, the ethical path. That takes courage. I read the article 3 times, trying to reconcile the portrait it painted noble reformer, courageous whistleblower, with how I actually felt. Tired, uncertain, still not entirely sure if I'd done the right thing or just the thing that would let me sleep at night. Victoria returned to work on Monday. She looked fragile in a way I'd never seen before. The armor was cracked, and she wasn't bothering to hide it. We had lunch together in her office. Sandwiches from the deli downstairs. Nothing fancy. Nothing performative. The board wants me to step down, she said, picking at her sandwich without eating it. They think my continued presence is too much of a liability. Too much association with the scandal. What do you want? I don't know. Part of me wants to fight. To prove I can still run this company. To show everyone I'm not my sister. She set down the sandwich. But another part of me is just tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of proving myself. Tired of being strong all the time. Then maybe it's time to stop. She looked up at me. Stop what? Stop fighting to hold on to something that's making you miserable. You built this company. You proved yourself 1,000 times over. You don't have anything left to prove to anyone. If I step down, what do I do? Who am I if I'm not the CEO of Sterling Corporation? You figure that out. That's the work you should have been doing all along, instead of building an empire to avoid the question. Victoria laughed, but there were tears in her eyes. When did you get so wise? I'm not wise. I'm just far enough removed from the chaos to see it clearly. Will you take over as CEO? If I step down? I shook my head. Interim CEO? Maybe. Until we find the right person. But this isn't my calling, Victoria. I told you I'm selling this company once. It's stable. Building something new somewhere else. With Michael? With Michael and others. People who want to build something ethical from the ground up. I envy you, she said softly. Getting to start over. Getting a blank page. You could have a blank page too. Resign. Take some time. Figure out who Victoria Sterling is when she's not performing for a board or building an empire or proving she's the smartest person in the room. She wiped her eyes. Would you help me? With the transition? Not as my ex-husband. As a colleague. As someone who knows this company. Of course. The following week, Victoria announced her resignation. The press release was simple, dignified. After 6 years of leadership, Victoria Sterling is stepping down as CEO to pursue new opportunities. She thanks the board, employees, and stakeholders for their support and looks forward to Sterling Corporation's continued success under new leadership. The stock barely moved. Maybe because everyone had been expecting it. Maybe because after Catherine's arrest, Victoria's resignation felt like old news. I was named interim CEO while the board conducted a search for a permanent replacement. It was supposed to be temporary 3 months, maybe 6. Just long enough to stabilize everything and position the company for sale. Harrison pulled me aside after the board meeting that formalized my role. You know this means you can't sell immediately, right? You need to stay long enough to show continuity, to prove the company isn't falling apart. I know. And you need to deliver at least 2 clean quarters. Show that the reforms are working, that the company can thrive under ethical leadership. I know that too. Good. He clapped me on the shoulder. Then get to work, Mr. CEO. That evening, I stood in my warehouse office, looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, Victoria was packing up her corner office at Sterling Tower. Catherine was in federal custody awaiting trial. 300 employees were wondering what came next. And I was CEO of a company I'd never wanted to run, trying to fix problems I hadn't created, preparing to eventually sell everything and start over. My phone buzzed. Text from Michael. Dinner tomorrow? Want to start planning the new venture? I smiled and typed back. Yes, it's time. Another text, this one from Victoria. Thank you for today, for everything, for showing me there's life after empire. I looked at that message for a long time before responding. You're welcome. Good luck finding out who you really are. She sent back a single word. You too. I turned off my phone and sat in the darkness of my office, watching the city lights blink on one by one as evening settled over everything. 7 years ago, I'd been a different person. Smaller, quieter, more willing to disappear. Now I was sitting in my own office, running a company worth hundreds of millions, planning my next move like a chess grandmaster thinking 3 games ahead. The question Victoria had asked echoed in my mind. Who am I if I'm not the CEO? But for me, the question was different. Who am I now that I've stopped being who everyone else needed me to be? I didn't have the answer yet, but I was looking forward to finding out. The helicopter lifted off from the Sterling Tower helipad at exactly 9 a.m. I watched through the window as the building grew smaller below me. 42 floors of glass and steel, and ghosts of who I used to be. In my briefcase was a single document, the final sale agreement. Sterling Corporation, sold to Meridian Holdings for $847 million. Clean, ethical, complete. The new CEO, a woman named Sarah Chen, no relation to any of the other Chens, remarkably, had impressed the board with her commitment to sustainable growth and ethical leadership. She'd start Monday. I'd be gone by then. My phone buzzed. Text from Victoria. Saw the announcement. Congratulations. You did it. I typed back, we did it. Thank you for the cooperation these last months. Her response came quickly. I'm in therapy now, 3 times a week, figuring out who I am when I'm not performing. How's it going? Terrible. Also necessary. Also maybe the best thing I've ever done. I smiled. Proud of you. Proud of you too. Go build something beautiful. The helicopter banked west, toward the industrial district, toward the warehouse that had been my sanctuary, toward the office where Michael and I had spent the last 3 months planning our new company. No empire this time, just good software, good people, and good intentions. We'd start small, maybe stay small, maybe grow organically if the work was good enough, but we'd do it right, fair wages, transparent practices, actual work-life balance. Revolutionary concepts in the tech world? The helicopter touched down. I climbed out, walked toward the warehouse entrance, and stopped. Michael was waiting outside, grinning. Ready to be unemployed? I'm not unemployed. I'm liberated. Same thing with better marketing. He held up a bottle of champagne. To new beginnings? To new beginnings. We walked inside together, past the elevator, up to the 3rd floor where our new company's office was taking shape. Desks being assembled, computers being installed, whiteboards waiting for ideas. Empty, clean, possibility. I stood at the window one last time, looking back toward Sterling Tower in the distance. Somewhere up there, 300 people were working under new leadership. Victoria was somewhere else entirely, doing the hard work of becoming human again. Catherine was serving her sentence, paying her debt. And I was here, finally here. After 7 years of being small, I'd learned to be large. After months of being angry, I'd learned to be free. The snow started falling outside, the same snow that had fallen the night of that dinner when everything ended and everything began. I watched the flakes settle on the windows like promises being kept. Michael appeared beside me. You good? Yeah, I said. And I meant it. I'm good. Then let's get to work. I turned away from the window, from the view of Sterling Tower, from the past. Why? End quote. Why? End quote. And I walked toward the future I'd built with my own hands. Free. Finally. Completely. Absolutely free.